time for us to make peace and stop the fighting. One love, one unity, got to break the bondage. No more borders around me, no more mental slavery. Bob Marley said it best, stand together and feel alright. But if we fight,
let it be for justice.
and if we war,
Let it be for justice.
at all costs,
Let it be for justice.
do what is right.
Let it be for justice.
Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Inequity, disparities, and violence. Oppression, racism, no, I won't be silent. No more barriers for we. We will thrive, prosperity. Marcus Garvey said it best, none but ourselves can free your minds. But if we fight,
Let it be for justice.
and if we war,
Let it be for justice.
at all costs,
Let it be for justice.
do what is right.
Let it be for justice.
Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. 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 No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. We the people are from royalty. Royalty. I wish so many of us can see. Keep the culture, be united, stop the violence. Put the power in ourselves, create the franchise. In the news last week, another bomb overseas. I'm so sick of these murders in the streets. Ooh, boy, ooh, boy,
Greetings, and salutations, one and all.
Let it be for justice.
Welcome to Community and Finance right here on the night shift with DJ Kevin Steele.
For justice.
You know, whenever I start with this track here by China Nicole, Let It Be for Justice, we got something hot and heavy.
Let it be for justice.
I want to say big ups to each and everyone locked in right now.
What it costs, let it be
Those on TuneIn Radio on the night shift with DJ Kevin Steele.
for justice.
Those hailing from across the pond, One Harmony Radio. Top of the morning to you guys over there in the UK.
No matter what it costs, let it be.
Much love to those who are locked in out to New Jersey on NIE Radio, hanging out with New Jersey's finest, the Motivator.
Unity, got to break the bondage.
Big ups to those out in New York, on Island Worldwide.
Me,
China Nicole,
mental.
very much love to you.
Bob Marley said it best.
Those locked in out to Long Island,
Feel alright.
on a Reggae Pulse Radio, with DJ Atomic Force.
Be for justice.
Blessings. Much love to those who are locked in on the Foundation Radio Network, ClintonLindsay.com.
Let it be for justice.
Do what is right.
Big ups to those who are hailing out of Texas.
For justice.
Texas, boy.
Be for justice.
You know they do it big in Texas.
For justice. No matter
Those on Allowap Radio,
for justice.
those on Dusik Media Group,
Let it be for
those on WGLRO, the People Station,
prosperity.
home of the Donnie Walker Morning Show, taking from the sheets to the streets, touching from Detroit to Denmark and all points in between.
No more barriers for we. We will thrive, prosperity. Marcus Garvey said it best, none but ourselves can free.
I want to thank you all for tuning in. Those who are on Facebook Live, those on Clubhouse,
For justice.
And if we want,
those on YouTube Live,
Be for justice.
of course, those here at the home of the night shift to DJ Kevin Steele, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.
it's right.
So glad to have you. Couldn't do it without you. You have my word, I wouldn't even try.
Justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. 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 No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice.
I want to say thank you to my segment sponsors,
Are from
Pulse Media Group, and being in a moment is priceless. Go ahead and give them a call.
many of us.
They can take care of your videos, your photos, your streaming, your ads, and much, much more. Everything you see here on kevinstew.com, they can do.
In the news last week,
So you have a church service, a party, a graduation, a funeral, a wedding, a seminar that you want to stream live on a secure platform, whether yours or theirs, just go ahead and give them a call, 754-999-1140. That's 754-999-1140. And tell them Kevin Stew sent you. I want to say thank you to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands. Althea is a licensed massage therapist operating out of Broad County, North Miami-Dade, and South Palm Beach counties. She comes to you bringing her table, her oils, and over 20 years massage therapy experience.
stop the fighting.
So go ahead and give her a call today. Schedule your appointment.
To break the fun.
954-655-9000. That's 954-655-9000. She only has one request outside of paying her. That is to get her over a table and go sleep somewhere else when she's done. It's called the Kevin Stew Clause. Thank you to Reggae Global Entertainment. Reggae Global act as your booking agents, handle your tour management, take care of your business registration, legal service referrals, music production, marketing and promotion, and much, much more. Give them a call, 954-804-8199. That's 954-804-8199. Or check them out at reggaeglobal.com.
Oppression, racism, no, I won't be silent. No more barriers for we will thrive, prosperity. Marcus Garvey said
I
it.
want to say thanks to McNeil Trucking.
Free your minds.
They are veteran-owned, licensed and insured movers in the state of Florida. You know, move from the Keys up to Jacksonville and any point in between. Go ahead and give them a call. 954-406-9740. You want to put some things in storage? Don't have the manpower? Don't have the transportation? No worries. You have the name, you have the number. McNeil Trucking. 954-406-9740. With McNeil Trucking, your goods are in good hands.
Be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs. Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. We the people are from
China Nicole kicking things off.
royalty. I whistle
Track called Let It Be For Justice.
and see. Keep the culture, be united.
When it comes to justice,
Put the power in ourselves, create the franchise.
I don't know. Is it really blind? Is it weighed on a scale?
Murders in the streets.
Do you get stabbed with Lady Justice sword?
Ooh.
If you don't have enough money, that is. I don't know. How does it work?
But if we fight,
With us tonight, a man who is no stranger to the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew. And a man who is no stranger to butting in. Mr. Botinsky, are you around?
let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be
David, are you there?
justice. Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. What
Fish, can you hear me? Okay, now I got him. Hey, Fish.
Hey, how's it going today? This evening.
Yeah, it's evening here in South Florida. It's night in here in South Florida. A man who is no stranger to the justice system in Texas. One and only
Maybe
Mr.
not a stranger, but might be called a little strange. But
Well,
what's
yeah,
going on
you
here
know.
lately?
Well, you err on the strange side.
For
Ladies and gentlemen,
everyone, there's a place.
right? The one and only Mr. Botinsky himself, David Fisher. Welcome back to the broadcast, Dave.
Thank you, Kevin.
So tonight, Fish, tonight we're talking Darlie Routier. I don't know how many people are familiar with the name. I don't know how many people are familiar with the case. So let's go ahead and take it from the top, where we look at what happened. You know, what this whole Darlie case is about. So if you could just, I don't know, you are a much better storyteller than I am, I think. So
Alrighty.
I'll let you tell the story, and I'll
Yes.
interrupt you.
and I'm sure some of my greatest fans out there, tongue in cheek, would say, "Oh yeah, he's a great storyteller," which is another way of saying liar.
Right.
But for the Darlie Routier case, Darlie Routier is one of the few women in Texas that are on death row.
Yes.
She was accused back in the early mid-'90s of murdering several of her kids. One night when they were she lived in a two-story home, and her young sons, except for the youngest, were downstairs having kind of a slumber party. She was sleeping on the couch. Her youngest was sleeping upstairs with her husband. And according to Darlie, she got extremely drowsy and fell asleep and only woke up later to finding her sons dying and she having been physically assaulted. And while her husband was upstairs and heard apparently none of it.
Right.
Now, the position of the state is, that she murdered her kids. And, there was no intruder. And yet, the crime scene says otherwise. Seems to infer, that in fact there was an intruder. Or, at least, another person involved in the murders of her children.
Right.
Now, I was asked to look at this back in Austin, back in the 2002 to 2004 time frame. An attorney now with the Innocence Project, Quincy McNeil, who has tied himself to the Reed case, asked me if I would go to the Court of Criminal Appeals with him and look through the file and see if anything stood out to me in this case. And so I agreed to do so. And so while we're going through the exhibits and the transcripts in the trial, I saw something that kind of shocked me. Based on the story, Darlie's husband was upstairs, as I said, sleeping with her youngest son.
8-month-old son at the time.
Yes. Yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
Now, he had a tech business that was in financial trouble.
Right.
So he was having money problems. Well, in the pictures that were taken, by the police, in their investigation of the murders, photographed the upstairs bathroom. And there on this, on the counter with the sink was outside the shower was a pair of folded men's Levi jeans. Neatly folded. I mean, perfectly folded. Except on the fold line was a bloody handprint. And I told Quince, I said, now this is a big deal. See, because the story was that Darlie's husband came downstairs when she started screaming, and were hugging his sons as they passed away, and he's in his underwear. So eventually they called the police. Well, he goes upstairs to shower before the police get there. Now, who would do that? And then what? Clearly, he got, from whether he keeps his jeans folded in the closet on a shelf or in a drawer. He grabbed a pair of jeans and put them on the side of the sink and got in the shower. When he got out, he realized that the blood on his hands left a handprint on the jeans. So he went and got another pair, put those on, and left the original ones on the sink. Now, that is indicative of somebody who's guilty of something, making sure that they don't have any evidence on their body.
Well, let me stop you for a moment, one quick moment, and I want people to stick a pin right there, where Fish is at. So, in setting up to get to this point, for those who would do any research and go to check out the story, one of the stories that you'll probably come across is the story of Darlie being awakened by something waking her up, really, whether it was her son or just being startled, and finding a man standing at her feet, and then, as she describes him, wearing all black with bushy hair, struggle ensues. She gets stabbed and cut, near fatal cut to her neck. Within this cut came within millimeters of her carotid artery, if my memory serves me correctly. And she says the man darts out through the kitchen, through the garage, and runs away. And she screams for her husband, calls 911, and then cops came and investigated. So that's a summary of the story as I had gotten it.
Right. And in this investigation, the officers, went out to the back way. Now, as I remember, without, doing a detailed analysis, there were apparently items in the laundry room on the way out of the garage. But in particular, a tube sock, bloody tube sock, was found in the alley.
Yes.
Behind the house. I pulled up this district attorney email about the particulars of the case.
Mm-hmm.
One of the motions that Darlie Routier filed back in 2007, and in this it describes the sock that was found in the alleyway behind the house, lending some credence to the claim of Miss Routier. But no, this whole case doesn't make sense. And see, the problem in Texas with these cases is Dallas County completely bastardizes the laws and the civil rights of the defendants.
How so?
Right off the bat. Well, in Texas, we have a medical examiner system, and we've talked about this repeatedly in the Reed case and others. In Texas, a medical examiner is not the same type of medical examiner that you would find in New Mexico or other states. Here in Texas, a medical examiner is a judicial officer. He's a judge.
Right.
He has to have a medical license because he does his own autopsies, or one of his deputies, medical examiners or deputy judges, do the autopsies, so that they have firsthand knowledge of all the evidence that they're putting together. Because the medical examiner in Texas is required under the statute to conduct a judicial death investigation called an inquest.
Okay.
He can do this judicial death investigation inquest as a bench trial as a judge without a jury, or he can impanel a jury of 6 and present his findings to a jury where he's the judge. Now, if the medical examiner does an autopsy in a death in his jurisdiction, an undetermined death, he is required to conduct an inquest and write an inquest report and file it with the district clerk under seal. The inquest report is the first official record of the grand jury. If the medical examiner doesn't file the inquest report, then the autopsy was performed illegally. It cannot be entered into evidence in a criminal prosecution. And see, tomorrow, we digress just a little bit, there is a bomb going off in Texas. Now, it might be a muffled bomb that nobody will hear about initially, or it could be an atom bomb that everybody hears about. But tomorrow there's a hearing in the largest mass murder case going on in the United States right now, and that's the Walmart shooting where 23 people died, were shot to death by a shooter 2 years ago. Well, Texas has playing their typical games, has maneuvered the elected judge into being removed from the case in favor of a state-appointed district court judge. Now, the person who started this maneuvering is the district attorney. She filed a motion to recuse the elected judge.
Okay.
And the elected judge had criticized her for being incompetent. She's just been elected as a district attorney. And so she filed a motion to recuse him. Now, the state has illegally appointed a bogus judge from San Antonio who's been acting as one of the 11 most powerful judges in Texas for the last 5 years without any legal authority. And he's been going around the state being assigned by various other presiding judges or the chief judge of the Texas Supreme Court. All of this is unconstitutional. And the state has been depriving citizens and defendants of their, constitutional and civil rights. And so on this one, I raised a bit of a stink. I talked to the U.S. Attorney's Office this morning, talked to the FBI, had a call from the El Paso District Clerk, laying out, the legal problems with this judge who's set to conduct a hearing tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time in El Paso, where he's going to try to remove the elected judge. Now, I have warned the clerk and the DA's office and the feds that this judge, who's assigned to hear this case, has no constitutional authority on the bench. He has not taken the oaths of office for this appointment, which are required in Texas and have been required for over 100 years.
Right.
And he's going to try to do this. And he's done it one time before here in El Paso in Texas earlier this year, where he removed an elected judge on a high-profile murder case that there was a mistrial declared 2 years ago, and it hasn't come back to trial. And so the presiding judge of the El Paso region started maneuvering last year to remove the elected judge so the presiding judge can appoint himself to the case, which is unconstitutional under the Texas Constitution and under the U.S. Constitution. Administrative judges appoint other judges whenever there's a vacancy on the court, somebody's sick, something happens. The administrative judges, their sole purpose is to appoint other retired judges to cover the benches when a judge is out
Right.
or recused. And as such, under the Constitution of every state in the Union and the United States Constitution, a judge who has the power to appoint other judges may never appoint
Themselves to that seat. Okay.
which makes sense
Right.
because that brings in the politics. And yet, this is becoming more and more common in Texas.
So
It's-
this
So,
with this
Yeah, go ahead.
happening tomorrow, is there any way that this would be affecting Darlie's case?
actually, it could set off a domino effect because I made it very clear that if this judge tries to take the bench, he should be promptly arrested. He cannot be allowed to take the bench to preside over this bogus motion to remove the elected judge. And see, if they don't stop him and he recuses and removes the judge, it may prevent the U.S. Attorney's Office of later bringing civil rights charges against the shooter. Because the U.S. Attorney's Office knows that this judge is illegally taking the bench. And thus, the U.S. Attorney's Office would not have any defense from being charged with collusion in depriving the shooter's U.S. constitutional rights to due process under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and that's the amendment that calls for an honest judiciary,
Right.
due process under the law. And if the U.S. Attorney's Office, knowing this, allows this judge to violate this, the defendant's due process rights by putting a bogus judge on the stand, the U.S. Supreme Court may not allow the U.S. Attorney's Office to prosecute him for anything being sanctioned. And see, this is a problem. And my position is, why in God's name are you playing these ridiculous games that could cost all of the families, their constitutional rights to have the person who murdered their loved ones taken before a jury of his peers?
So
It's just nuts.
How would it tie back to helping Darlie?
Well, because medical examiners in Texas are judges.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dallas Medical Examiner's Office, who declared this a homicide and pointed the finger at Darlie Routier,
Yes.
is an illegal office.
Got you.
And yes, and see, because medical examiners are judges, and see, the state finally, for the first time, fully recognizes that this year.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from the General Counsel of the Commission on Judicial Conduct back in March, drawing my attention to a ruling by a special court of review set up by our Supreme Court. They found in their ruling that any officer of this state who has any judicial powers granted under the Constitution or by statute is a judge, whether they ever take the bench and don the robes.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, they are under the authority of the Commission on Judicial Conduct. So as judges, a medical examiner has to take the oath of office once they're appointed before they enter into the duties of their office, or all their acts are void. The chief medical examiner of Dallas became the chief medical examiner in 1991, about 5 years before the Routier murders. He did not take the oath.
Gotcha.
I made him take the oath of office in July 2011.
That's
for the first time.
And that was after the Routier case.
Long after these murders. So, all of the investigation, all the evidence collecting, all the DNA, everything touched by the medical examiner's office is dead. But it's worse than that, because Dallas medical examiner's office is actually the medical school, the UT Southwest Medical School.
And we talked
such,
about this on a number of previous broadcasts.
Yeah, you're right. Now, I ran into a similar office in Texas in 2008. It was Lubbock. The Texas Tech Medical School was masquerading as the Lubbock County Medical Examiner's Office, doing the autopsies for 80 surrounding counties. I shut it down in 2008, 2009. It was illegal. Dallas has continued to do this to this day, but it gets worse. The Dallas so-called medical examiner, chief medical examiner, Dr. Jeffrey Barnard,
Yes.
is also the head of the Dallas County Crime Lab.
Oh.
Oh, yes. Now, judges do not collect evidence, and preside over evidence. They evaluate it. The medical examiner, as an inquest judge, holds hearings, and the evidence is presided over by the other disciplines. Law enforcement, the DNA labs, the toxicology labs. But the medical examiner is not the director of any of those labs, because that's an inherent conflict of interest.
Correct.
Now, it gets worse. In 2003 timeframe, Texas formed the Forensic Science Commission to better control junk science getting into homicide cases. And so there are a number of appointed officials that make up the Forensic Science Commission. Now, it started out, a couple were appointed by the Senate, the lieutenant governor appointed two, the governor appointed a couple. It was spread out. Well, as always happens in Texas, the corruption comes into play. And slowly they maneuver it to the point that the governor makes the appointment of all members of the Forensic Science Commission, including the chair. And here, about 5 years ago, our governor appointed Jeffrey Bernard, the chief medical examiner, to be the director of the Forensic Science Commission. It's the duty of the Forensic Science Commission to preside over and regulate the crime labs. But Dr. Bernard is a director of one of the crime labs that, as the chief of the Forensic Science Commission, presides over.
But he wasn't. He didn't have this position back in 96 when.
No, he didn't. But this case is still going on, and they're still running DNA tests and other tests. But Dr. Bernard has been the director of the crime lab since he became the chief medical examiner, which calls into question all of the DNA evidence. And since he presides over the entire crime lab, it's not just the DNA that he presides over, fingerprints, blood spatter. You're beginning to see the problem.
Well, the good thing here, though, is late last year, in 2021, new DNA was ordered to be looked at. Let's see. I read this recently. DNA evidence. Let me find it. Because New York Innocence Project got involved.
Very check.
And hopefully they do something good with this one. And they argued for new DNA testing to be done. And the judge, the judge agreed. Jane Poocher, as someone mentioned,
Very check's office.
Yeah, someone mentioned
The
in
same
the stew pot.
same Jan Futcher in the Rodney Reed case.
Yeah, and so someone did put in the stew pot. Those of you who are listening in wondering what the stew pot is, it's the chat room on kevinstew.com. We're just fancy, so we call it the stew pot. Mentioned her involvement. Now, and thank you for posting those pictures. You mentioned the jeans. They posted a picture of the jeans folded.
With the bloody handprint on them?
Yeah, not a close-up of it, but yes.
No, but enough that you see that it's a bloody handprint.
But it's enough that you see that it's bloody. And which is enough to raise a question, but wait, why wasn't that mentioned? Or spoken about a whole lot more? You see, here's the thing with Darlie's case, and depending on where you get your information about it, it is presented in this way. And in fact, let me do this before I get deep down into that. Those who are watching on Facebook Live, those who are locked in on Clubhouse, we're going to part company with you guys right now. Come on over to kevinstew.com for the remainder of the broadcast. You just go to kevinstew.com, and link is in the description. It is pinned in the comment section, so you don't need to worry about how you're going to get there. It's real easy. kevinstew.com. You have two ways to watch. There are two players. One of them is a YouTube player, so you can go there. You can comment in the chat room. You can put your name so I know who it is that I'm interacting with, or you can remain anonymous. It's up to you. You can also call in. 773-789-STEW is the number to use. 773-789-7839. You can call, text, WhatsApp, Telegram. They all work. But you can contact us and give some feedback too. I encourage you, since Fisher is on the line, I encourage you to go ahead and you can call. If you're calling directly, not using Telegram or WhatsApp or anything like that, but calling directly, you can do that. And you can comment in the stew pot or on YouTube Live, okay? But you are invited to call a friend, tell a friend, share it to a friend, friends of your friends, friends of your enemies, enemies of your friends, and your enemies too. Let everybody know. We're talking about Darlie Routier tonight and the case against her. So Facebook Live, Clubhouse, deuces to you guys. Catch up with you later on for Healthy Love. Now, so here we are, and all the talk in this case surrounds Darlie and her possibly killing these children, and the whole thing about someone being in the house being a sham, and she's just telling a story, and that is that. And even so much as her wounds is being argued to be self-inflicted. Now I'm going to put up a picture real quick of Darlie in the hospital showing her wounds. Let me go ahead and make this full screen here. So there is the wound to her neck coming across her body and down to her shoulder. So it goes from, what was this, left to right, if I remember correctly, them saying. And so, or was it right to left? Was it her left shoulder? I think it's her left shoulder that was cut. So it's her neck on the right side down to her left shoulder. And in the investigation, they went as far as to say, could this be self-inflicted? And the doctor said, yeah, it could be. But even more so, Fish, what I found interesting is it wasn't until an independent investigator started asking questions that the question was asked, but wait, is she left-handed or right-handed? In order to inflict these wounds to herself. And so she would have to be using, quite similarly to Ed Salmela, she would have to be using her offhand
And that changes the angle of how you hold the blade, which, then doesn't correspond with the pictures, and then you get a domino effect.
Yeah, but none of this was argued.
No, because you see, this is what happens when you have a structured investigative operation that is outside the statute. All of the players, the medical examiner, the detectives, everybody there works together to create a unified picture of what they want, what they want the conclusion to be. And so everything is interpreted to match the theory of the case. They don't look at the evidence and see where the evidence takes you. You determine what you believe happened and then try to twist the evidence to support your presumption. And this is standard fare in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why so many people end up wrongly convicted, because everybody plays. You see, the medical examiner, being a judge charged with conducting a judicial inquest, is the power player here. See, all of law enforcement works under the direction of the medical examiner. They cannot do any investigation until he releases the crime scene for them. He's the one who does the autopsy to then tell them the autopsy indicates this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
Appears that she was cut. Since she is right-handed or left-handed, the cut does not appear to be self-inflicted. The angles are wrong. This is wrong. So you're looking for a knife also.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means go check all the drawers and all the knives in the house. Go upstairs and look and dig around in the husband's bedroom and in his closet and see if he has a knife that has blood on it, which they never did.
But they took the knife that was found on the floor in the kitchen as the murder weapon because that had blood on it. Couple of comments here. Yes, Harmony. The medical examiner would be a judge, except that they have not taken the oath.
At the time.
Which then just makes them a regular Joe like you and me.
And what it does is it
It's just
destroys
kinda crazy.
all the evidence touched by the medical examiner and his staff.
And okay, so yes, and Harmony, even though an Emmy has no power to convict anyone, but they do have power to conduct an inquest.
Well, they not only have the power, they have the imposed duty. They have to.
Right.
It's statutory. And if they don't, then the autopsy, the medical examiner's testimony, all evidence collected off the body after it was removed from the crime scene, all of that cannot be used in a court of law against the defendant.
Right. So there are many things that come into play here, Harmony, when it comes to the Emmy taking an oath based on Texas Constitution.
Yeah, these fall under the Texas statutes and under our Constitution.
Yes. And
now there's another part here.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a medical examiner who's wearing multiple hats,
yes,
which Dr. Bernard does, in violation of our Constitution. See, Dr. Bernard is a professor of pathology at the UT Southwest Medical School, as are all the deputy medical examiners. They're also professors at the medical school. They receive a salary from the medical school as professors, and they also receive a salary as medical examiners from the county. Now, this in Texas is unconstitutional. You cannot hold two offices of emolument at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And in Texas, no division of the state can employ a physician to practice medicine. So professors at teaching medical schools like the UT Southwest Medical School, they're appointed officials. They're not employees of the medical school because they're physicians.
Mhm.
And the law that prevents it in Texas is called corporate practice of medicine. And under that doctrine, only a physician can hire another physician. So these physicians at the medical school, Dr. Bernard and all his deputy medical examiners, are also appointed officials of the state that receive a salary, and county officials appointed by the commissioner's court who receive salaries as judicial officers. You're beginning to see the
twice.
conflict here. Yes, they're being paid twice, and they're holding conflicting positions.
Yes.
You see, because those professors, as professors at a teaching medical school, preside over the training of resident physicians who during their residency program treat the poor in the county hospital, if one of those resident, doctors at the medical school is negligent and causes the death of one of his patients, do the professors overseeing that resident training then hide evidence to protect the medical school and that resident from being sued as members of the medical school, or as the medical examiner, judicial officers whose duty it is to protect the public, do they, prosecute the physician because he's a threat to the health and safety of the public? You see the conflict?
Mm.
And see, that's one of the prohibitions under the Texas Constitution. Under our Article 16, Section 40 of the Constitution forbids holding two appointments for profit at the same time,
Right.
which Bernard and all his people are doing by holding the position of a state-appointed officer of the medical school, teaching medicine, and a county judge to conduct inquests. They're being paid for both positions at the same time, positions of the state, and that's holding two offices of emolument. It's unconstitutional. Also, under Article 16, Section 40, not only is it prohibited from holding two appointments for profit at the same time, but you can't hold positions that conflict at common law. And there are three subdivisions of conflict at common law. The first one is self-employment,
Mm-hmm.
or self-appointment. The second is self-employment, and the third is conflicting loyalties, which is what happens when you're acting as a medical examiner and a physician presiding over students practicing medicine at the county hospital, because you can't do both.
What?
And see,
Well, no. You can't say you can't do both because clearly both is happening right here.
right.
You shouldn't
And
do both.
Now, but you see, Texas used to be a country, so our Constitution is a little more evolved
Yes.
than what the rest of the nation would claim about most Texans. To be fair, so if you violate Article 16, Section 40, and you're holding two paid appointments at the same time, and appointments that conflict at common law, then you violate Article 16, Section 33. And what 33 says is if you violate Article 16, Section 40, then you violate Article 16, Section 33, and no division of the state can pay you for either appointment.
How does
So
the Section 33?
both appointments become void. You're not a medical examiner, you're not a professor at the medical school. And the state can't pay you. No division. The medical school can't pay you a salary as a professor, and the county can't pay you a salary as the medical examiner as long as you hold those two appointments simultaneously.
But Fish, you keep saying that they can't, but they are. So
I said that's what the Constitution says.
okay.
I didn't say that's what.
Well, okay, good.
Remember, we have an Attorney General by the name of Ken Paxton.
Yes.
Yes, and anybody that knows Ken Paxton knows that what the law says and what our chief, law officer of the state does are very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
So now it gets worse, and this is where you see when I made Jeffrey Bernard take the oath of office in July 2011, it wasn't that clean. You see, I was setting in stage a domino effect because what Article 16, Section 33 says is that you can't hold the two appointments at the same time
Yes.
for profit or the conflict of common law. And if you do, the state can't pay you for either appointment because both are illegally held
Yes.
until you take the oath of office for the second appointment. And see, Bernard was appointed as a professor of pathology at the medical school in '89. He was appointed medical examiner in '91. So 91 is the second appointment as medical examiner. So when he takes the oath as medical examiner, automatically his appointment to the medical school is voided.
If he takes the oath.
He did, but when I made him take the oath in 2011, it voided him being from July 2011. He's not a professor of pathology at the medical school, and all of his graduate degrees and everything he does for the medical school and pay, they're all void. You see a problem?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, and the medical school is the one that's doing the autopsies, not the medical examiner's office. See, that's the other thing they do. Dallas plays a word game. You have, and attorneys are confused about this. I don't know how many attorneys I've had to sit down and walk them through this. The autopsy report says, on the top of the autopsy report, it says, Institute of Forensic, the Institute, and then in big bolder letters, and then underneath it says, the Southwest Institute it says Southwest Institute, and then Forensic Sciences. Anyway, I have to pull it up and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a ink stamp on the autopsy report that says Institute of Forensic Sciences. Now, here's what they do. The Southwest Institute of Forensic Sciences is the medical school, is the medical examiner's office.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to the if you go online and type in Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office, it'll open a web page. It'll say the Institute of Forensic Sciences. And it might say, and it's been a while since I've looked at it, that Dr. Bernard's the chief medical examiner, and then it lists DNA, histology, firearms, gunpowder residue, all of these divisions of sciences. That's the crime lab. It says the medical examiner's office, but that webpage is for the crime lab that Dr. Bernard presides over as the appointed director of the crime lab. The autopsies are done by the UT Southwest Medical School, which is the Institute of Forensic Sciences. And so what Dallas does is the medical school does the autopsies. And so since the medical school is a division of the state, all of their records are state records and are covered under the Public Records Act. So the medical school does the autopsy, writes the autopsy report, and then forwards a copy to the DA's office, and it's file stamped Institute of Forensic Sciences or the medical school, and it has a cover page. And the officer, the public records officer for the medical school, certifies that this is a public record. It contains X number of pages on the autopsy report, and then it says X numbers of autopsy pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And where it says the number of autopsy pictures, you always find a double X. You know why?
Why?
because the medical school can't take a forensic autopsy picture. So they can't provide it as a public record. So law enforcement takes the pictures at the autopsy, and those are crime scene photos taken during the autopsy, and the medical examiner's deputies may not identify or testify off of them at trial. But no defense attorney knows this. They just assume all of this is done legally under the medical examiner's jurisdiction, and none of it is. So how does this all come into play? Well, you've got Dr. Bernard presiding as the director of the crime lab, so he controls the ballistics, the fingerprints, the blood analysis, the DNA. He controls all of it.
But in Darlie's case, this is being sent to a lab in California.
Doesn't matter. Who controls what gets sent and how it's identified?
But isn't this being now the because it is the defense that put forward the motion for
That's
this
right.
to be sent?
But the defense, just like an honest detective, would have to trust what Dr. Bernard's people collected and how they stored it, and the evidence is what they claim it is. But because it's such a corrupt operation, you can never trust them. See, that's the same pickle that Rodney Reed is in.
Yes.
Here in a couple of weeks, the U.S. Supreme Court is going to hear arguments about Rodney being able to test certain evidence collected at the crime scene in his case. But who has controlled that evidence, and for 20, 30 years? It's the state.
The state has
and
that
then
evidence.
who's going to then swab the items or take the items and submit it to the crime lab to test? You see, crime labs will tell you their results are only as good as the honesty of the agency that's delivering the evidence for them to test.
Yes.
And then take into account that Lisa Tanner has had her dirty little fingerprints on that evidence for 20, something years. Her and Mitzi Wolf. I wouldn't trust anything that those two people handled to be what they say it is, because they've lied their little butts off for years about everything in this case.
But you see, and this is the issue that I'm having with as I look at more and more cases out of Texas. Not that I'm biased to Texas cases, but it just so happens that I'm able to address these cases more than any other. Julius Jones out of Oklahoma is one of the few that were not in Texas that I've addressed, and Daniel Butier is out of Arizona. And those who, a lot of people know about Julius Jones, but not a lot of people know about Daniel Butier. He was the second conviction in U.S. history to be voided. And anybody listening now can look him up. You'll find that even if you check my archives, you'll find a whole 2 hours of that dialogue with Daniel Butier, and he tells a story. If you don't believe what you heard there, you can call him up yourself.
Yeah, and see, I had some dealings with the Phoenix Medical Examiner's Office several years ago, because a medical examiner that came to Austin in 2007 had come from Phoenix.
Yes.
And she did a high-profile in-custody death there. And, I noticed that she didn't have a valid Texas medical license. And so I started taking her whole medical career apart, from her graduation from medical school at SUNY University in New York, all the way across to her working, as a physician at one of the Indian reservations in Montana or Wyoming, I can't remember for sure, and then her move to Phoenix And she had been in Texas, in Bexar County, San Antonio, for a couple of months. And so when I talked to the chief medical examiner in Phoenix, he goes, oh, yeah, Ruth Kohlmeyer, she was here, she did this, and we got talking about it. He goes, I said, didn't it seem odd to you that she took off work to come to Texas to obtain a Texas medical license when she claimed in her curriculum vitae that she had a Texas medical license? And he goes, Dave, now that you point that out, that did strike me as odd. But I thought I misunderstood her. I thought about it for a minute, and then I thought, I must have misunderstood, so I never looked back. But now that you raise it, yeah, she falsified her employment records here, as she did everywhere she went. To the Indian Reservation, from the Indian Reservation to Phoenix, all of it was that way. And so she didn't land very long here in Texas before she was in Wyoming, where she did a big murder case. And I was working with the media there. They were getting ready to do a major story on her and what a fraud she is, when a week before the story, she slipped out the back door and showed up in Colorado. Working for a coroner in Colorado, and the coroner was one of the medical examiners in San Antonio she worked under. So he put his umbrella protection over her and hid her out there in western Colorado.
So,
but
you see,
but I mean, it is when you're dealing in Texas and you're dealing with medical examiners and law enforcement, Texas is a cesspool. In fact, we should be able to build the greatest mazes and write the best word puzzles, for the New York Times that could ever exist, because our whole criminal justice system is a maze and word puzzles.
Okay.
Nothing means what it says it does, and nothing follows the structure of our Constitution and our statutes.
A question here. Well, it's really a question for mostly, I would say, for your opinion. Is Toby Shook, who prosecuted Darlie, doing the same as Lisa Tanner?
Of course, and that's the deal. Dallas knows that Dr. Bernard and his office is unconstitutional. The current DA knows this. In fact, when he was running for the district attorney's office, Judge Crisault was a judge. We had a long conversation about this and the medical examiner's office, and if he won the election, what he would be confronted with. And he goes, oh, Dave, all of this is familiar. When I was a judge on the bench presiding over homicide cases, he said several defense attorneys raised this issue about the medical examiner's office, but they didn't explain it as concisely as you did, so I didn't understand it, so I ruled against them. But now I see what you're talking about. And then he won the election, and guess what? He's the biggest, purveyor of fraud, and covering up the corruption of the medical examiner's office in Dallas.
All right.
And it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican. Once you get the seat of power, you step into the shoes of your predecessor and continue the scam. And so that means I have to then start working on another avenue to circle around and come at them another way until I can get them over the barrel.
Right.
And see, I removed the El Paso medical examiner, started that process in 2007. Finally got the medical examiner removed in 2010. Then they tried to hire an Irish coroner, non-citizen, to be their medical examiner in 2012. I kept telling the commissioner's court, the county judge and the county attorney, that medical examiners are judges and they have to be U.S. citizens, period. And they batted back at me in the press. I didn't know what I was talking about, and they've already offered him the position, and as soon as he gets the medical license, he's going to be their new chief medical examiner. So I said, okay, fine. I filed a preemptive complaint with the Texas Medical Board warning them if they issued that Irish doctor, non-citizen, a medical license so he could impersonate a
Chief medical examiner.
an inquest judge in El Paso, that I would charge them with criminal fraud to defraud the federal courts, because all homicide cases end up in federal court. Well, guess what? The medical board refused to issue this guy a medical license.
Well,
So El Paso had to drop this guy. They'd only just the only thing they would tell the press is, oh, it turned out he wasn't a good fit. Yeah, but in the interim, do you know what that guy did? He resigned his position as a coroner in Ireland. Has a wife and kids. Sold their house. Bought a house in El Paso, and were preparing to move. Gone through their visa stuff when the El Paso medical examiners, the El Paso County Commissioners Court said, never mind, and left this guy hanging. In Ireland, no job, no house, no income, no nothing.
oh
Just
wow.
turned and walked away. Yeah. And so they got smart. So what they did after that is they found a Mexican national who was doing a residency in forensic pathology in New Mexico, at the New Mexico Medical Examiner's Office. So they quietly had him obtain a medical license, and then they appointed him the chief medical examiner of El Paso. And guess what's going to happen? I warned them when they did that in 2012.
But that's the same thing, though.
Huh?
It's the
Yes,
same thing
it
as
is.
an Irish guy.
Absolutely. Only this time he already had his medical license. So the medical board in El Paso County is laughing, yuck, 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 we put one over on Fisher. Really? No, I just told him, I'll be back at a time of my choosing when the right case comes along. Well, guess what? All of the 23 people who were shot
In
at
the
that Walmart store, all those autopsies are illegal. The death certificates are felonies. They fall under federal jurisdiction. The FBI already, questioned me thoroughly about that a year ago and agreed that they are under their federal jurisdiction. The U.S. Attorney's Office is hovering over this case, like a hawk waiting to swoop in. And all of this is going to come to a head, and it could come to a head tomorrow at 1:30 a.m. if that judge tries to take the bench, and the FBI is there waiting to arrest him if he does, for federal civil rights violations and frauds on the courts. And if they do that, they won't stop there.
Yeah, because
Once the
that's
cat's
a
out of the
ripple
bag,
effect.
they'll go after the medical examiner's office, the autopsies, and you know where it'll go next? U.S. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Scalia, who died out in West Texas a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
whose body was taken to El Paso for an autopsy, and the medical examiner wouldn't touch it because I let him know he'd go to jail if he did. So Anthony Scalia's death certificate is a falsified state record, and the family doesn't even know it. It is invalid. It's void. So these things, I'm patient. I'll sit back and wait until the right set of circumstances come together to line the dominoes up, and then I'll knock them down. And that's what's coming now. The media knows this. They're prepared for this tomorrow.
So
And as I've said, I've had talks. Go ahead.
We need to pay attention to what is happening come tomorrow with this case then.
Right. And to be honest, it's very likely nothing will happen. Not to begin with, but it won't take long before something does, because the Texas legislature is now getting nervous as they can get over all of this stuff piling up. And you see,
In an election year.
yeah, we got the election, but we also have our governor in harm's way of being charged federally for embezzling $295 million of COVID funds.
There's that too.
Yes,
And the corruption gets
and
deeper.
yes, all of this, all this is water under the bridge. They've already done it. They've already been caught. It's just that the media hasn't. It hasn't broke out in the media yet.
Mhm.
But there's no way that the Justice Department can continue to prosecute people over stealing 100,000 here or $1 million there, when the Texas governor embezzled $295 million. And let me tell you, I caught it the second he did it, pulled the records, and turned them over.
Let me come back to Darlie.
Yeah,
Directly.
yes.
Directly.
I mean,
Because all
that's
these things,
really what everybody's out there listening for. in this case.
all this
Let me
comes
let me
back
point out
to
something else
helping
here in
her,
the
though.
Darlie Routier case.
Yeah.
There's some other things that tie directly to the Reed case. The first thing Barry Scheck's office and Future did was they brought in a DNA expert for Darlie
Mhm.
to go over the DNA and retest. Do you
Yeah.
know who that was?
Who?
Elizabeth Johnson. Does that name ring a bell?
Hmm?
That's the DNA expert in the Reed
They
case.
brought in Elizabeth Johnson?
Yep.
They did
Elizabeth
bring
Johnson.
in Elizabeth. Yeah.
Now, for people who don't know, Elizabeth Johnson is an absolute fraud that works for the state that masquerades as a DNA expert for the defense. She never tests the evidence that's presented her. She makes it up as she goes along. That's what she did in the Reed case. I caught her red-handed. But not only did I catch her, the district attorney in Galveston caught her in 2008, doing the same thing in a murder case where she was brought in by the defense. The defense, Elizabeth Johnson, requested numerous items in that murder case to be submitted to her California lab for testing. Now, just before the trial, the district attorney in Galveston requested that Elizabeth Johnson return all of the DNA samples that hadn't been used up in her sampling,
Yes.
so they could, in case they ever had to retest, they would have those samples that
Right.
weren't used up in her testing. When they got the evidence back from her office, most of the packages had never been opened or tested. When they confronted her, she just disappeared, didn't show up for trial to testify. Now, would you trust that woman
Mm-mm.
to be your DNA expert on a death penalty case?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and of course, Elizabeth Johnson got nothing. Now, another high-profile case that I was involved in with Elizabeth Johnson was the Kobe Bryant rape case in Colorado.
Mm.
Only in Colorado, I was providing stuff for the state, for the prosecution. And what I warned them about is what Elizabeth Johnson was brought in by the defense, by Kobe Bryant's team. And she immediately started telling the press that she had tested the swabs collected in the rape kit, and it proved that this woman had multiple sex partners other than Kobe Bryant that night, which is devastating for a rape charge.
Right.
And I explained to the prosecution what the modus operandi of Elizabeth Johnson was. And so they finally, using what I'd given them, got her nailed down in a deposition, and they started grilling her. All of a sudden, everything Elizabeth Johnson said went up in smoke.
Mm.
And within 2 days, 3 days, I think, within a week of that deposition, Kobe Bryant settled with the plaintiff.
Right.
So, again, the reason Kobe settled is because Elizabeth Johnson lied on her test on what the evidence showed.
So is this California lab the same one?
Yep.
Forensic analytical crime
Yeah.
lab
Yes.
in Hayward, California?
No, her now. I don't know where she is today, but she was at Technical Associates
Okay.
in Ventura, California.
Okay. So
That's where she was
a
in the
different.
Reed case. That's where she was in the Kobe Bryant case. That's where she was in the Darlie Routier case.
And
But after I tagged her, she was an employee of Technical Associates when I tagged her in 2001. Well, they severed their relationship with her as an employee, and she became a contract vendor. So they realized the liability that, that the company could get sued into bankruptcy over her lying, so they made her a contract vendor to insulate themselves from her lies.
got you. Now, speaking of lies, back to the matter at hand. Darlie. So here it is. Darlie says there was someone there in her home that had attacked her. Well, she and them ended up in a struggle. She ended up with bruises that showed up as she was in the hospital.
Yeah, over the next 2 days, which are what bruises do. It
Right.
takes a day or two before they surface.
Right. And she has this near fatal cut to her neck within 2 millimeters of her carotid artery. I don't see someone doing that to themselves. Even if they're depressed, a depressed mother, postpartum mother, killing her children, and
right. And when you have postpartum depression stuff, they just kill their children. They don't, as a general rule, they don't try to create a scenario of a third-party murderer. They're just severely depressed, and the overwhelming feeling comes over them, and as if they're compelled, and they do it. Like the woman who just drowned her kids on the beach there up in the Northeast here over the last couple of weeks.
I missed that one.
Yeah, they found her on the beach, and her children were all drowned and laid on the beach.
Wow.
But so this, and see, now I didn't mention the intruder so much in the beginning because, you see, I look at the evidence as the evidence stands.
Mm-hmm.
If there's evidence of an intruder, then that's freestanding. If there's evidence that the killer is not her, and the evidence more leans to her husband, then if there was an intruder, he was hired and brought in by the husband.
Which is another line of argument, because he was in financial strains.
Yes, and they had big life insurance policies that set him off on the way, and he was most interested in his youngest son than his older sons.
Right. Being Devon and Darren. No, Darren was a husband.
Yeah. So
Devon and Damon.
This thing's funny. Now, in dealing with Quincy McNeil from that 2002 to 2006 time frame, one of the other things he brought to my attention was a photograph, and a slide with blood from the table on it with a fingerprint in the blood.
A smudged fingerprint, yes.
Right. And so they wanted to test the blood. And I told them, I said, look, the blood is, fairly clear. The amount has to be Darlie's. What should be of interest to you is swabbing the fingerprint in the blood, because blood is tacky, and it will, when the person whose fingerprint smudged through the blood all the way through and lifted off, that person's DNA is going to be a profile in with whose ever blood that is. So you're going to get two profiles or one. And if you get one profile and the fingerprint doesn't match Darlie's, then there is your second party.
Right.
And I said, now, he says, yeah, Dave, but to do that, you'll destroy the smudge print. And I said, it doesn't matter, because you photograph it through the various digital lights, so that it gives you the best impression possible.
It preserves it.
Right. Because the DNA is, when you find out whose DNA it is, there's enough of the smudge fingerprint to give you enough
Of a
points
confirmation.
to determine whether that's that person's fingerprint
Right.
or thumbprint. So you're not really destroying any evidence that has any major value. The destruction of the print and the DNA, whose DNA it is, and if it's separate from the DNA profile in the blood, and so and thus that would be the route I would go post haste, is to find out, is that actually the thumbprint of the intruder? And to my knowledge, it's never been done.
And well, isn't that what they're trying to?
I would be willing to put a great deal of money on the fact that Barry Scheck is not seeking to do that, because from what I've seen of Barry Scheck, he tries very hard not to prove his clients are innocent. And let me tell you, I've looked at a lot of his cases, and they all end up the same way.
So, all right. Here we have Darlie, we have Darren, we have the two slain sons, Devon and Damon. But Darlie describes a bushy-haired guy wearing dark clothes. A witness had come forward to say they saw two guys, one fitting her description, one matching her description. So, but the detectives say, hey, we found no evidence of any such thing. Darlie says the person ran through the garage into the back.
Into the alleyway, right.
But the back gate, the hinges were broken and the gate was wired shut, so there was no evidence of the gate being opened.
Yeah, you go right over it. It's only a 6-foot privacy fence. That's the easiest thing in the world to jump over.
But they were saying that there are no prints outside, no footprints outside.
No, but one of the socks of the children was out in the alleyway behind the house.
Okay, so how did it get there?
Yeah, exactly. You see,
and they were
when
saying
they say
that
there's no evidence that anybody left that way is simply not true. Now, the high likelihood is that whoever the intruder was wore gloves. Now, if you look at Darren, he doesn't meet the profile of a cold-blooded killer. He's a technician.
Okay, but he's a cash-strapped technician.
Right. And so what they do is, if they are setting up to come into a lot of money, they hire people to do the dirty work for them.
So even if, because now there's also the part of her saying that she wants a separation. There was
Yeah, it
that
would be
part too.
be the end of him.
Right. So even in a jealous rage.
No, no. There's certain, certain people don't have jealous rages. They're meek. They scheme to get even.
Mm.
They get even in their mind. He who laughs laughs loudest. That's a particular profile of a person who doesn't strike out physically. They just get even. Their whole approach is to win. And to them, the win is greater than any physical satisfaction.
Mm. So
But
for
but the
him, a win
problem,
would be the 200,000
the money,
life
the
insurance.
house, the kid, everything, and Darlie takes the fall, and he's home free. That's the win.
I'm still puzzled at how it is that the prosecution managed to get around the whole injury, the whole set of injuries to Darlie in the midst of all of this.
Because the attorney who represented her was court appointed, and he works for the state and soft sold the defense. That's what happens in Texas.
Okay.
I mean, that is as common as it happened to Rodney Reed.
All right. So why target Darlie as the prime as a prime suspect? Because apparently
Because
she from jump she was looked at as the prime suspect.
right, is all you have to see, because the medical examiner's office is dysfunctional, there's no investigation, they're using the bodies of the children as teaching cadavers for the residents. They're using all the DNA and the blood evidence, as part of their crime lab, which is also tied to the medical school, to the university, training people. So this is just a big business operation. So to keep it simple is the way that you make it easier to get the convictions without making a mistake that could cause the whole thing to blow up in your face. It's just like here last November, Dallas prosecuted a serial killer, Billy Chemirmir.
Mm-hmm.
And he was accused of killing at least 17, 18 elderly people from assisted living centers, older people.
Okay.
And what he would do is he'd go into the facilities, kind of masquerading as one of the facility workers, and he would go into the rooms of these elderly people. They're not invalided, bedridden. It's a self-assisted living operation. And he would suffocate them and steal their jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because the medical examiner's office is really an operation that diverts bodies to the medical school to be used as teaching cadavers for their residents, well, they don't want to do that with wealthy families and people whose loved ones, mothers, fathers, who are living at an expensive assisted living facility.
Yes.
You don't want to bring those bodies in to do an autopsy, because you can get yourself caught. So what Bernard would do is he would tell those assisted care living facilities for the physicians on site to declare the death a natural death, a heart attack, even though the physicians could not legally do that because they were not presiding over the individual when they died. So they have no idea how they died. But that's what was going on until one, Chemirmir, tracked an elderly woman from a Walmart to her home and killed her in the same manner. And that caused the dominoes to start falling backwards. But because the majority of the people that Chamir killed from the assisted living facility were cremated, there was no way to come back and do an autopsy. Yes, sir, Bob. And all of this because Dallas runs a criminal medical examiner's office. That's why Chamir got away with those murders for as long as he did. Because he was killing people who were, see, one of the families was a mother of a football player. And you see, Dallas didn't want to touch them to send those bodies to their medical school to be used as a teaching cadaver for fear that, this family has money, and if they discovered what they were doing, you see what would happen? So, when Chamir comes to trial, guess what Dallas does? They put a student who did the autopsy as part of the residency program. They put him on the stand to testify he was a deputy medical examiner. Well, I immediately pulled his medical license. He was a friggin' resident. He wasn't tied to the medical examiner's office, period. That this autopsy was illegal. It constitutes tampering with a corpse. It's a felony. And they put this guy on the stand before the jury. And then they put Dr. Bernard on the stand to testify that this student was actually a deputy medical examiner in training.
So basically,
they lie as easy as they break the law everywhere else. On oath, on the stand, again, to cover up what they've done or not done. See, and that's why I have no confidence that retesting the Darlie Routier evidence, because it's been in Bernard's company's hands, and they will be deciding on what they send to this crime lab, that the results will be specious at best. So how do you ever win? You don't. It's a stacked deck.
So
just because they shuffled it doesn't make any difference.
So you think Darlie won't get justice?
Well, let's put it this way. It depends, as is always the case in Texas, as to whether you get justice or not. It depends. It depends on a lot of things. Now, if Darlie's case starts getting some attention, or the system starts coming under scrutiny, then it's in the best interest of the state to have a eureka moment where they go, oh my God, look, we got a profile of an unknown person that's not related to the Routiers, so this has to be from the person who did, who Darlie described, who did the murders. Now that person will never be found. But then now there's reasonable doubt of Darlie's innocence. Though the DA's office will never say that she's actually innocent, so she will not get the $80,000 a year wrongful conviction, but she'll be released from prison. That's the Texas new scapegoat. That's the way they pull this stuff now. So best case scenario, that's all that Darlie can look forward to.
Reasonable doubt presenting itself. But here it is. But reasonable doubt was well. Then again, you address that by saying here it is. The defense was state appointed, which means work for the state. So in Texas,
as does Barry Shack, they get paid to represent Darlie on her appeals, as they do all, like they did Reed. And see, in the Rodney Reed, in their evidentiary hearing last July, the 2-week hearing, They knew the judge who was on the bench presiding over the case was the judge with no oath who executed their client in 2019, Larry Swearingen, having no oath, having been warned, and they allowed the judge to execute Larry Swearingen illegally, which constitutes a murder. And then that same judge is within 3 months is appointed to preside over Rodney's case.
Yeah.
I mean, if the bells and whistles don't start going off now,
When?
so Barry Scheck and his bunch are either brain dead or they're Joseph Mengele's cousins.
Let me go back to something that you started the broadcast with, the story of Darren and the folded jeans.
Yeah, you have the picture. You notice how they're folded. The way they're folded is the legs, fold back so that you have the perfect crease where the handprint, where the blood is.
Mm.
Being a guy that, had a, girlfriend who was meticulous, that's how women fold men's jeans. When they put them on a shelf in the closet or in the drawer. So these jeans were taken right out of where they were stored to that sink and set down while the person who's doing this jumps in the shower to wash all the blood off his body, which is evidence. Because part of Darren, that's the dad. I get Darren and Devin.
Darren is the dad.
Yeah, Darren having blood on his person from hugging his dying sons, that blood on his body is evidence to support his story.
Right.
Why in God's name would he go up, shower, and put on a clean pair of jeans and clothes? And the law enforcement go, what the crap are you doing? This is nuts. What father would do that would be more concerned about how he looks to the police when both of his sons have been brutally murdered and his wife, has suffered, injuries? Who would do that other than the person complicit in the murders? Or the murderer.
But here's the thing. This is the same argument which actually landed Darlie on death row because they took her birthday celebration of the older boy with a silly string.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. You have a business. The medical examiner's office, the crime labs, are all a business in Dallas. They're not part of the judiciary that they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be conducting a separate investigation as a judge with all the powers of the judiciary. And that's not what's going on in Dallas. The chief medical examiner, supposed to be the judge, is running a business at a medical school. And the business is to train physicians.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the hardest things for medical schools to come up with in a teaching medical school of residents are teaching cadavers. So Dallas married their medical examiner's office with their medical school, so they divert all of the homicide cases to the medical school for the residents to do the autopsies, which destroys all the evidence.
Mm.
You have no idea what was lost in those autopsies on those kids. Because it's a business of doing autopsies, not about collecting evidence and investigating a crime. And once you do that, then you have to come up to hide this stuff. You have to come up with the most simplistic, theory of the case that nails one person as quickly as possible. The longer it goes on, the better the chances somebody screws up, and a piece of evidence that they're trying to hide that points a finger somewhere else, which would be costly to track down that defendant and convict them, slips into the evidence. So what they do is they go after psychological warfare.
But
now, Darlie Routier, her whole history is doing things goofy like that. And to me, I consider that pretty goofy. But to a lot of families and a lot of women, that's the way they approach things. I have a sister that would have done that.
right, as looking at that, and I didn't find that strange at all. Because
it depends on
grief,
your family, your upbringing, there are so many
but not
things
only
that come
that,
into play.
How someone grieves, there isn't a hard and fast way to exhibit grief.
Right, and some cultures and some families,
they celebrate life.
They celebrate the life after the death. Instead of focusing on the death, they celebrate the life. And you see, that was none of that was indicative of any evidence that she did anything. But when you don't have a defense who will fight for for their defendant, then this gets into evidence as what the state says it is. And remember, the state is the one who primarily is responsible for the jurors that get on that jury.
Right.
And so it doesn't take much to swing a jury.
I was just getting a call from someone. I don't know who that was. I just missed it. If you could call back, please, if you're just calling in on the broadcast, if you could call back, please, real quick, I'd greatly appreciate it.
So again, where the Darlie Routier case, as I see it, because Barry Shuck's involved, and because Barry Shuck's involved, it doesn't do me any good to get involved in this case. I already have, pulled the records in the case, and Barry Shuck is going to do nothing, just like the woman in Brownsville that was almost executed earlier this year, Lucio.
Mm-hmm.
You see, Barry Scheck and the Innocence Project, Poocher, and people all were arguing that Lucio was innocent of being convicted for the 2006 murder of her young daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they pointed out that the medical examiner did the autopsy and testified was mistaken and gave false testimony. But they never mentioned that medical examiner's name. Now, it just so happened I knew who it was because I was responsible for the person being there. I removed the McAllen medical examiner in 2005 for falsifying an autopsy on a district court judge who was murdered, declaring it a suicide. This judge died on a Saturday, and that following Monday he was to meet with the FBI on a major corruption case involving, all of the top officials just about in McAllen, with bribery, money laundering, drugs, all of it. And the judge was turning state's evidence, and he was the linchpin, and he commits suicide over the weekend. And it's the sheriff who finds his body. Breaks in, claws through the upstairs window, and breaks in and finds him allegedly have committed suicide. You know what happened to that sheriff 2 years later?
What?
He's indicted by the FBI for all that corruption that the judge was supposed to talk about.
Really?
So, yes. I mean, it's like, God, people pay attention. And so, I immediately, when I saw and looked at the little bit of the autopsy, I called the newspaper reporter and said, this is a murder. This isn't a suicide. Go look, pull the crime scene pictures, and look here, 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 and here. And she did. And she comes back and goes, oh, my God, you're right. When you look at the pictures, this guy was murdered. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so I went after the medical examiner because he falsified his credentials and had him removed. So they hired a new forensic pathologist medical examiner. And that's who did the Lucio autopsy in 2006. That Barry Scheck and Poocher told the media, the legislature, when they met with the legislature here, and the legislature, many members of our Senate and House signed petitions to the governor, to stay the execution. So who was this medical examiner that Barry Scheck and his staff wouldn't name, that complained that she was incompetent and gave false testimony but wouldn't use her name? Well, it just so happens that she testified for the state in the Rodney Reed evidentiary hearing in July of last year with that fake judge who didn't take the oath, who executed Barry Scheck's other client in 2019 with no legal authority, being on the bench with no oath as a visiting judge, just like the guy's going to try to do tomorrow in El Paso. So that person was Norma Farley. And Norma Farley took the bench in the Reed case to testify that the former Travis County medical examiner Bayardo's testimony in the Reed trial was spot on, that he was a great medical examiner. But she didn't tell him that she, Norma Farley, was a deputy Travis County medical examiner under Bayardo and was involved in the same criminal fraud of defrauding the JP counties by lying to how they were doing the autopsies back in 2000.
Hold on, one sec, Fish. One sec.
Sure.
We have a call coming in here. Hello. Welcome to the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. You are live.
Yeah, hi. Can you
I can hear
the
you.
gentleman who's with you? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, and I can hear you too.
Can you ask the gentleman who's with you about the lawsuit that he tried to work with the Reeds? And
Wait,
hold
on. So I don't know why this person, one, was using a voice disguise, and two, hung up as he was asking his question, as I interrupted him. I purposely interrupted him, but or her. Why are you using a voice disguise, whomever it is that is calling? I don't get it. What are you afraid of?
I think it's self-evidence,
No, hold on, Fish. Listen, people, you have something to say? There are two things that really irritate me. One, an individual hiding behind a keyboard and arguing on social media. Two, someone disguising themselves, asking a question on a murder case. Because I heard them mention something about Rodney Reed. But
right, yeah, they were going to Rodney Reed. I was curious as to where that was going, because it might expose who the caller is by the question they ask. Because remember, take into account, I've thrown some stones at some really big key players here. Elizabeth Johnson, Lisa Tanner, Norma Farley. So all of these people have a dog to hunt and would want to try to discredit me. Well, how they approach that question to try to discredit me would give me a pretty good idea of who they are, since they're using a voice synthesizer.
that's just crazy.
Right, but yes, but this is a crazy world we live in right now, Kevin. It's made up of the clowns, the lions, the tigers, and the bear. So my. So
Come on, man.
yeah, it would be one thing, but you see, there are careers. There are potential criminal charges. You see, as the system begins to crack in Texas, a lot of people are in harm's way. But I don't know, did you get the impression that that was actually an older person by the cadence of the voice?
Yes. So let me go ahead and see if they're gonna answer, because I know I'm gonna call them. So let's go ahead and see if they're gonna answer when I call.
Sure, because I'd be interested in the question, because the question
I want to
would
hear the
help
question. I
identify
just want to
who
know
it
why
possibly is.
they're hiding themselves. Why they're hiding their voice. We
Right.
don't know you. Why you disguising your voice? You're
Well,
afraid.
unless their voice is recognizable to me.
Well, let's go ahead and call them back. Let's see what we get here. We probably won't get an answer.
Yeah, that would be my bet too.
And given the fact that they're listening, because they called.
Please leave your message for 6034986.
Okay.
What area code is that?
New Hampshire.
Wow, to live in such a beautiful, peaceful place as New Hampshire. to go through this dog and pony show, that's pretty odd.
I don't get it.
Yeah, nor do I. But now I need to start, paying attention to any of the players that I know if I see something that indicates that they're in New Hampshire.
Well, you can get a number with an area code from anywhere. So
Oh yeah, that's true. I don't keep
it's
up
neither
with the,
here nor there. In
yeah.
today's day of cell phones, or you can get a phone number.
Right.
But
And
anyway,
see, I don't
you know,
I don't do that. I don't play that game.
but it would have been good to hear the question. I still want to hear the question. I just want to know why you're disguising your voice. So I probably should have waited until they asked the question.
Yeah. Well, but back to the issues here. If I don't I don't see anything good coming out of anything Barry Scheck's doing on DNA testing, because one, Barry Scheck, I mean, if the guy, he's been doing the Innocence Project, dealing with the Texas courts. I mean, if he was straight up honest, and I'm not saying he is or isn't, I'm just posing the question. If he was honest and competent, he should have long ago realized that you can't trust the Texas courts, the law enforcement, and the crime labs. So if you're going to go after DNA testing, you have to do some groundwork first. And before you show your hand of where you're going, you need to lock down the samples that you want tested so the state can't jack with you. That
Right.
you get the items that you want as they exist before you try to have them tested. Then you got a better chance of actually getting the evidence that is what it purports to be to the lab that you want to test it. But this slow walk to hell that Barry Scheck does, you see, that's the thing that just just chaps my ass. Darlie Routier has been in prison
25 years.
from,
25 years.
And Barry Scheck and them have been trying to have the DNA tested for better than 15 years. And it's always a little dribble here, a little dribble there. When they started to do the DNA testing, they didn't lay out the format, have a direction they were going, what evidence is most likely to give them the results that they want, zeroing in on those pieces of evidence that you know should contain two separate patterns, like the blood drop with a partial fingerprint in it.
Mm.
That piece of evidence right there, that DNA, that one sample, could give you two profiles, and if neither one of them matches the bloodline of the husband or the wife's families, then you got a third party there at the time of the injuries to Darlie.
Right.
And that is your smoking gun. And they've never tested that. And I pointed that out to them in 2006, that that's where they should be zeroing in on.
Because there
and of course,
another argument of theirs is the footprints inside the home. So there's blood, and the only set of footprints that they find happens to be one of the first responders. But Darlie's footprints are not in the blood either. So how do you rule out
if she
someone
was up
else
walking around
being
doing
there?
this, yeah. See, but again, this is the Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office. That is not a medical examiner's office. It is a business to divert the bodies from crime scenes to the medical school as teaching cadavers. It's not about collecting evidence. It's not about complying with the statute. It's not about guilt or innocence. It's about a business, a big business, that medical school. And this is what happens when you do that. They immediately decide on who's guilty, and then tunnel vision sets in, and the more that you press back, the more lies and the manipulation, and that means manufacturing evidence, going in and videotaping a birthday party on the grave and converting it into, proof in your mind that she's guilty.
Right. Based on just the silly string. Then that's the part right there.
Right.
Come on. So
and like I say,
because she wasn't
I
a
know,
broken, grieving, bawling, holding her stomach kind of a mother at this situation.
I know women who approach tragedies like that and would do that. I mean, it is indicative of nothing. But if you control the jury and you don't have anybody on that jury that can say, look, it might offend your sensibilities, but it is not evidence of anything. It is not evidence of her guilt. It's not evidence of her innocence. It's simply not evidence. It's evidence of a different mental approach to a tragedy. That is evidence of, because it's contrary to you. So it's evidence of somebody else's approach and their sensibilities, how they approach things differently, which everybody knows, our society is made up with nothing but people with different sensibilities.
Right.
So, but if you control the jury and you don't get that common sense, other jury on there that will stand up and say, yeah, no, then that becomes a big deal in a conviction. And that's what's so scary about this state, is there are no powers to be that are truly interested in getting to the truth. They're interested in getting the prosecution as fast as possible with the least dollar cost. And that's for the criminal justice system, that's the kiss of death.
Well, okay, so Justice C has a couple of comments here. It sounds like he was asking about some filings against the state in a case, probably using a dummy phone, probably, But at this point, since they're disguising their voice, we don't know. It probably some bogus number that they're using also. They're supposed to be running the unidentified fingerprint through the database. Well, they didn't run it in the first place, so, what do
you
they
always,
do at this
because the database continues to grow, you continue to run the fingerprints. The problem is, because of time, the chances, of a hit actually start falling against you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the person was an adult in 96, they're almost 30 years older.
Yeah.
Which means they're a lot closer to death. And people who operate on the edge of the law like this generally tend to have a shorter lifespan than people who are not on the wrong side of the law, who are enjoying life, and who don't put themselves in harm's way. So
okay,
you have that. So the chances of finding somebody who is clearly would be right now in their 60s, if they've avoided their fingerprints being in the database till now, they're not likely to ever be in the database.
Mm.
But the other deal is, if you have 6 points that you can get off of a smudge fingerprint instead of the 12, those 6 points should exclude somebody.
Yeah.
And excluding somebody is the next best step to including somebody.
Right.
So to wait this long to start looking at that is, again, signs of an incompetent defense. That's something that should have been addressed, 20 years ago.
Justice, what is it that you wanted to know about the sock with the blood on it? Because what we know is that it was found in the alley. My question to that is, how did it get there? Was it placed there? Well, at what point was it really placed there?
Well, it was found the night of the murder, and clearly I can't remember off the top of my head. I pulled up the DPS lab report for the Routier case. Let's see. Let me blow it up here a little bit because I have it compressed. Let's see some of the items that they've tested and see the items collected and see if the sock is in here. Cutting item, possible DNA analysis. Okay, we have we have items from blood tubes and then empty tube. Cutting from the T-shirt. Several different cuttings from different areas of the T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Cuttings. Empty envelope, more T-shirt, lots of T-shirt testing.
Oh, apparently her footprint was there going from the...
Well, if she gets up after she comes out of her daze, because there was an indication that she might have been intoxicated or even potentially drugged, which would make sense, because how would, you would have to really be out of it to be, abused as much as she was. without the screaming and the fighting that should have brought her husband down enough time, if all was true, down the stairs to see her attacker.
Mm-hmm. But
okay, we
then
have
again, here it is. She was barefoot, and so was Darren.
right here. We have a swab from Darren, a saliva swab from him. Blood sample from Damon Routier. I guess these T-shirts are a lot from the kids. Saliva swab from Darlie.
Mm-hmm.
Gauze fabric stain. Seeing if these socks are in here. It's a lot of pages. How many pages? 10 pages of items tested. And see, some of these submissions are from 2010, 2011, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are tests. See, that's way after the fact from a confident defense. And since Barry Scheck has been on this case since the early 2000s, see, that's the incompetence of that operation, or the lack of organization.
Mm.
And I see that still today in my trying to deal with them over the last summer, and provided documents to Butcher and her cohorts, and then I got a slapback comment, and I go, wait a minute, didn't you read the email? Don't you understand what that document says? Don't you understand the rules of evidence? That says that this is evidence. Not what you think it says, what it actually says. And then I didn't get a response after that. But this is a professor at law that is representing and arguing for these defendants at these hearings, like she did at the Rodney Reed hearing last July. And she couldn't even understand the lab report that I gave her, what it says. This is hard evidence. This is evidence the state let loose that they shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And she's trying to say, oh, well, they probably mean, oh, I remember what it was. It was a time. You see, the crime lab in the Rodney Reed case
yes.
left Austin and arrived in Bastrop 30 minutes later.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, during rush hour.
Yes.
And then I have the timesheets of when the DNA lab truck left the crime scene in the evening,
mm-hmm.
and then arrived back at the DPS crime lab, and it's way too long.
Right.
It's like an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And when I point that out, it says, look, during rush hour, going in with rush hour traffic, not going reverse traffic flow, but flowing with rush hour traffic, at 5 o'clock, it only took them 30 minutes to get to the crime scene. But at 9 o'clock, with no traffic, on a Tuesday, it took an hour and a half to get back to the crime lab.
3 times as long, yeah.
Yeah. What the hell is that? And then I think it's Poocher or the other one comes back with, oh, they probably mean when they unloaded the crime lab. And I go, that's not what it says. It says arrive back.
Yeah.
Well, they probably, they probably didn't write the time down until, and I said, no, don't you understand? This is evidence. This is the crime lab keeping accurate records on when they left, when they returned. It's not evidentiary how long it took you to restock the crime lab. That has no evidentiary value. Now, the reason this is critical is because I have pictures of the crime lab retesting and swabbing Stacy's body late at night after they left the crime scene.
Right.
So they pulled over somewhere late at night and re-swabbed the body, and she's got a different pair of panties on. I have those pictures.
I've shown those pictures.
Right, so they were tampering with the evidence, and the timesheets confirm it, and here's what Poocher, Rodney's attorneys, come back with. Oh, they probably meant. Seriously, you're an attorney and you don't understand the rules and laws of evidence? No wonder none of your clients get off.
Mm.
Now, I'm going to tell you, there are things that will get you in trouble in this world, but nothing will get you in more trouble than getting, into...
Hold on, Fish. Here's another call coming in. Let's see who this one is. Greetings and salutations. This is the night shift of DJ Kevin Stew.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, you still on the air?
You're on the air.
Hi. So I'm the guy who called last time you guys were talking about Rodney Reed. And
remember.
Just wanted.
Yeah, go ahead.
You do remember.
Go ahead. Yes, do.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So a couple of things, if it's okay, I know you're not talking about that specific case now, but a couple of things I think should be addressed from that. One of the things he kept on harping about was the fact that there was no evidence that the car was ever, or the truck was ever impounded or brought to the Dallas
DPS impound lot. That's correct.
Yeah. So, tell me, have you ever gotten any information on that day of other evidence being impounded to the lot?
Right. So, yeah, let me explain what happened. The pickup was moved it was locked when it was found at the high school parking lot. They didn't have the keys to get into it. So they moved it to Basco's record yard inside the building. So it was secure until Jimmy Fennell arrived with the keys so that they could unlock the pickup. Ed Somala used Jimmy's keys to open the pickup. And then all the pictures that you have seen of the inside of the pickup are those pictures taken by Ed Somala. There are no pictures taken by the DPS crime lab. Now,
Okay,
how you tell
DPS... Go ahead.
Go ahead. How you tell the difference between what Ed Somala was doing was just taking pictures of the inside of the truck, the initial pictures before they took it to the crime lab for his own records?
I mean, you've seen those pictures, right?
Oh yeah, I have them.
Yeah, and you know that there are rulers inside taking measurements that say DPS on them.
No, not inside the truck.
Yeah, inside the truck, on the upholstery, on the floor, the rulers that are used in the pictures have the initials DPS on them.
Those if you have seen those pictures, then they have been Photoshop overlaid, because I have been down to I have pulled all of the pictures, all of them.
Okay.
Years ago.
Another thing,
all in evidence.
Another thing we talked about was the checks that were
the check cards, right?
You were very adamant of the fact that this showed duplicity on Jimmy Fennell's part, right?
Correct.
Right.
Now let me explain why. Let me explain
that it was a joint account.
No, it was not a joint account. It was Jimmy Fennell's account that they were using jointly. Stacy did not have a bank account, so she was depositing her checks into his account.
You were very adamant about the fact that because she was dead, he had to get that money out of there because it was going to freeze because Stacy was dead.
Pending probate.
But that wasn't the case at all, because obviously...
Do you know when Jimmy closed the account?
It was just in his name. It doesn't matter when he closed the account.
Oh, yes, it does, too.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. Take into account what happened that morning. Jimmy Fennell is notified by Stacy's mother that she didn't show up for work. His story is he left and took her car and drove to Bastrop. It's 30 minutes, 30 miles. He arrived in Bastrop, drove down the highway turned into the HEB parking lot, didn't stop or talk to anybody, and then he left Giddings at about 7:30, turned right around, headed right back to Giddings, arrived there a little after 8, and immediately closed his account.
Yes.
His checking account.
I would do the same thing.
Yeah, well,
a guy stole my wife, stole my truck.
No, wait a minute. No, Jimmy Fennell, they haven't looked in the truck. He doesn't know that Stacy's missing, the checkbook's missing, nothing.
He doesn't know the truck's gone?
No, he doesn't know anything. She just didn't show up for work. The truck hasn't been found yet.
He doesn't know that there's carbon.
They found the truck between 7:30 and 8 while Jimmy's on the road back to Giddings.
Okay.
So and they can't get into the. And they didn't get into the truck. And they didn't get into the truck until Jimmy came back with the keys about 9 or 10. And when Ed Samala opened the pickup door, the first thing Jimmy asked him to do was check in the center console and see if his checkbook was there, which Ed did, and it wasn't there. Jimmy didn't say, "Oh my God, there's a blank check in there with my signature on it," because she was supposed to, when she got off work today, stop at the tax assessor collector there in Bastrop and paid the registration on the truck that was past due, which is what he did. That's what he did 6 days, 7 days later, huh?
If my fiance is gone and my car is not found, and then they in fact do find my car, and that it is not.
They hadn't found the car when he closed the account. Stacy is only missing. Didn't show up for work. That's it.
I'll agree on that until I can find the.
No, I have. Look, I'm not gonna lie. Look, I don't lie. I don't lie to you. I'm sorry?
How much was in that account?
Not very much.
You did lie to me, because last time we talked in February, you said that it was a joint account. And you said that they did have to close that account because...
No, it was not. They were using the account as a joint account. It wasn't set up as a joint account. No, look, you're mincing words. The mere fact that Stacy was cashing, Stacy was depositing her checks. When Stacy was depositing her checks from her work into his account, because they were writing checks on it to cover their expenses for the wedding and everything else, then it makes it a joint account under the eyes of the law, because the money in there is not all his.
Under the eyes of the law, a joint account is a joint account.
Are you an attorney here in Texas? Are you an attorney here in Texas? And if you did some research, you would find out that's not the case.
Hold on.
No,
Wait,
find out.
1 second. Hello.
Do you know what a joint? Hey,
hello.
Kevin, do you know what a joint account is?
Hello.
Yeah.
So let me ask these questions. 1, are you familiar with Texas law? First question.
I'm familiar with the fact that Texas has laws, and I can understand laws.
Answer my question, please. Are you familiar with Texas
laws? Yes, yes. I've researched Texas law.
Cool. So we're talking Texas law. By Texas law.
Right. It's one of the 50 states. It has very similar laws, even though you guys want to make it pretend that there's very different.
Well, here's the thing. Looking at a lot of the cases that I've spoken with attorneys about in Texas, apparently there are some differences there as to everywhere else.
Texas, a personal account is actually a joint account.
That is not what
a personal account where two people who are in a relationship are both depositing their same monies in an account that one person opened, but they're in a relationship. Then it muddies the water. If one of those people dies in the eyes of the courts have to determine whose money is left in that account in order for probate.
How would the court have a clue as to
that?
Who
you see,
owns
that's the point. Now, do you know who wrote the big question mark about that account? The police chief of Bastrop. When he discovered the next day that Jimmy had closed that account that morning and didn't tell him when he questioned Jimmy about what went on that morning. Jimmy didn't tell him, and he got all nervous, and because he was preparing to send out a notice to the bank and everything to watch for checks. And when he talked to the bank to give a notice, they said, "Oh, Jimmy closed out that bank account first thing in the morning yesterday."
Does that, huh? The sheriff does that in Texas. The sheriff calls the banks when there's a death.
Police chief who's conducting the investigation.
They do that. They call and they cancel. They close accounts.
No, they called the bank and said, "Hey, be on the lookout because this is, for this, any checks being cashed on Jimmy Fennell's account, because that'll give us a picture of who the potential murderer is." And then they find out, oh no, he's already closed the account. And the police chief goes, "What?"
Hold on a second.
And so the police chief wrote a report.
You said you're not going to lie, but you are lying. So how much was in that account?
Wait, hold on. Pause.
No, wait a minute. What did you say? I'm lying about what?
He's asking how much.
The police chief said.
The police chief called the bank to put the bank on notice the next day, only to learn from the bank that Jimmy had closed his account out the morning that Stacy went missing.
You're lying.
I have the police chief's report.
Great. But you're lying. The police chief doesn't call the bank when someone's murdered.
The police, look, you're talking about, this is a little county in Texas.
Okay, here we go.
A town,
Texas.
This is a little, the sheriff's department, the police department, the local law enforcement are all working together, and they're dividing up the workload. And the police
know all
chief.
About that. How much? Was
yes, I do, because I personally knew the police chief.
Tell me how much was in the account.
I'm sorry?
Wait. How much was in the account?
But it was a couple of $100. It was not very much money.
So, and what was his? Okay, so it's not the fact that he's worried about his checkbook's gone. It's something else that you'd like to infer that Jimmy Fennell was nefariously closing a bank account.
If common sense tells you, if my girlfriend went missing on her way to work, driving 30 miles across country, and didn't show up for work, and I borrowed my in-law's vehicle because she was driving my vehicle, and I drove that 30 miles to her place of work looking to see if she was broke down on the highway that Jimmy said he was doing, and I got to the other town, I would go to her work and say, "Has anybody heard anything?" Because, one, I don't have any communications in that vehicle. He didn't have a cell phone.
You're a police officer, but you don't have any communications?
He's in a private old woman's car.
So he doesn't have any communication?
No, has no communication.
Wait, Fish. Listen to what David said just now. He said he doesn't have any communications in that car that he's looking for.
You don't know that.
That he's looking for. That's what he just said. That's what Fish just said.
But yeah, I know that's what he said, but you don't know that.
So, okay.
You don't know that he's not in contact with a walkie-talkie or whatever he had.
No.
A walkie-talkie in what?
He doesn't have...
Wait, hold on, Fish. A walkie-talkie with whom?
With his own...
With his own what?
With his own police department.
This is 1996.
I'm not saying it's a cell phone. It's a walkie-talkie. So I mean, you creating this there is no evidence. If my wife was missing all of a sudden, and I went to, and I'm tracing the steps that she'd go, and I get to HEB, I'm like, shit, she's not there. I got to go find her, and I got to head back. You say that he went to the bank and took his $200.
He made a U-turn through the parking lot, didn't stop, didn't look, drove straight back to Giddings, getting back, and the first thing he did, he closed his bank account, and then he went to the Giddings Police Department, where he arrived at around 8:30, and that's when they promptly told him, you need to go back to Bastrop. They found the pickup, so he makes a U-turn, and he goes right back to Bastrop, and with the keys to open the pickup. So he doesn't, and the first question he asked Semelitz in his report to open the center console and see if his checkbook's there.
I think people looked inside the truck, and saw scatterings of checkbooks. I believe
Look,
that's the case. And I believe
if Jimmy Fennell, after opening the truck and finding there was no checkbook in it, then went to the bank and closed the account, I would have no problems with that. I could see, somebody not thinking and doing that.
Okay,
do it before he knew
what do you
that,
think he was thinking?
It tells you that it's evidence that he knew she was dead.
Why?
Because the first thing he wants, because he doesn't know anything. The only thing that's reported, she didn't show up for work, and she's missing. And that's all you know. And his first instinct is to go close his account. That is highly suspicious.
Why?
Because why would you? If you were having problems with your fiance and afraid that she's going to steal the money out of your account.
Fish, hold on. 1 second. Let me tell you something. Real story. Because it's my story. My ex-wife, with my credit card, I couldn't reach her. Only to see my credit card maxed out shortly after. I didn't think first thing to do was cancel that credit card because I couldn't reach her. So why he found out his fiancée was missing? Why would that be his first thing to do, to close his bank account?
You would not close that.
Listen to what I said. No, listen to what I said. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. Listen to what I'm saying. Because this is my story. Because you can't tell me how my story goes.
I'm just reading.
Listen carefully. Don't speak. Listen. My ex-wife, I couldn't reach her. My first thought was not to cancel my credit card. My credit card was only canceled after it was maxed out, and I still couldn't reach her. But I know she was alive. But I couldn't reach her. My first thought was not to cancel my credit card.
Okay, now
why is his first thought going to be to close his bank account? And why wouldn't that be a flag?
Let me know when I can speak.
You can speak now.
Okay. When he made his way to HEB and found that the truck's not there.
No, he didn't even stop and look. It's a big parking lot.
Hold on, Fish.
Okay, so he went to the truck. He went to the parking lot and he didn't look for his truck at all. Is that what you're saying?
No, he drove in, made a U-turn, and headed back to Giddings.
Why did he do that?
Clearly, he had other concerns, and since he arrived back in Giddings right when the bank opened, and he's there to go in to close his account at 8, clearly his greatest concern was getting back to his bank and closing his account. But you made a comment about the check carbons. You had an issue with that. Do you know my background? I used to do consulting for the Postal Police in Houston. Thus, I'm very familiar with fingerprinting checks, check carbons, and that type of evidence. The only fingerprints on those check carbons are Jimmy's. And that's well in the evidence. It's all photographed.
Are there missing checks? Are there any missing checks?
There are no missing checks. There are only allegedly found only 3 check carbons pulled out of the checkbook.
Not checks, just carbons?
Just check carbons. And the carbons have his fingerprints on them on the corners, showing that he's the one that pulled them out of the checkbook.
How are they missing?
And you see, since they're check carbons, nobody can pull them out without leaving your fingerprints. There are no other fingerprints on those check carbons but Jimmy's, and they're arranged, and they have them circled where they are on the check carbons, and you can see where he pulled them out. But the kick is They were not found at the truck or with the truck. All of that evidence was written into the report after Ed Salmolo's death. I have his original handwritten report, and he did not find any check carbons.
You did not answer the initial question that I had.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you did hear it, but then you went off on a tangent like you do.
No, I didn't hear it.
The original question was, so you know that there is no record of the truck being checked into the GPS on the day that.
No, I have the reports from the chief investigator and the impound lot, Will Young, and I have written reports from him because he responded to my records request. The state did. They have no evidence of the truck being logged in or logged out.
Do they have any evidence?
Processed in or processed out?
Hold on, Fish. Let me ask a question.
Do they have any logs
let me ask you a question.
Of anything else being put in or out that day?
Or
did they lose everything?
Hold on. Answer. What relevance is that? There was a records request for this vehicle. So why would anybody want to be asking about any other vehicle? There was a records request for this vehicle. Why are you going to ask about other vehicles?
I'm asking you if they lost the log.
Why are you going to be asking about? That's irrelevant.
Let me. If you're saying that there was never a truck put in there because it's not on the log, I'd like to ask you the question: is there a log that anything else was put in there?
Listen. Hold on, Fish. Listen to the question you're asking.
Yeah.
And I said, of what relevance is other vehicles when a records request is made for this particular vehicle? No records request was made for all the vehicles logged in that day. We said a records request for the record of this vehicle. Of what importance is any other vehicle for that day?
And you see, the relevance to that answer establishes chain of custody of the evidence. You see, if you don't have any records that anybody logged it in or logged it out, then you've broken chain of custody because nobody knows where it is because it wasn't logged in.
Fish. Here's why I don't even want you to go through this because we've been talking about this for a long time. So go ahead and answer your question.
You're very pointed to my question, and it still hasn't been answered. So the answer to your question is, why do I care about anything else that day? Because, all right, number one, we're talking about 3 years ago. All right, so if you ask a department if they have a logbook from 1997, 90, whatever, and they say, I'm sorry, I can't come up with the proof that this truck was in the garage. There's two ways there's two rationales for that. One is the truck was never there, like you guys wanted to believe. And the other one is that they just don't keep good records. And if you told me that you have a record of everything else
this is a crime lab of the DPS.
It's a crime lab. Oh, yeah.
Of the DPS, of the Texas Rangers. This is their crime lab.
So
tell me, Fisher, if you have proof of anything else being put in.
Okay, let me explain. Did you watch State versus Reed, the documentary?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm in that documentary. That came out in 2006.
Yeah.
Do you know when my interview was filmed in that documentary? It was the first week of October 2001. First week of October 2001.
Yeah.
I gave it to them as their graduate film thesis they did on the Rodney Reed case, and then they took those clips and made State versus Reed. But the first thing I did after going through all the records that the state provided, that the Austin American Statesman provided, that the Smithville Times provided, that I got from the courts, is I saw the discrepancy in the truck. And so the first records request I filed with the state was for the truck title registration for the history of the truck. And what it shows, and you see me pointing out in the documentary, is the car title, the pickup title shows that Jimmy Fennell sold it to Giddings gold Chevrolet in Giddings the morning of the 24th of 1996, the day after Stacy went missing. So
That's a lie too.
Jimmy,
I'll post something over
I'm sorry, it's in the
I'm
records.
sorry. I'm sorry,
Wait,
but
wait,
you're wrong.
wait.
I have there's testimony and there's actual physical evidence of it being 3 days after the murder.
No.
Where's
No,
your evidence?
No. Hey,
No,
Jimmy,
hold
hey, Kevin, let me handle this. Now, look, don't talk over me because I'm gonna tell you what
so
the records.
confused.
Let me walk this through with him. So the first thing I saw, and I don't look. You have to understand. I don't know whether Reed is innocent or guilty, and I don't care. I was asked by the by the newspaper.
I think you're very
to look.
invested in the fact that it is.
I didn't at that time. At that time, I knew
Listen.
nothing about the case. I lived in Houston when this all happened. I was asked to look at this case. I'm sorry, none. I knew nothing
You've
about the
always
case.
been invested in it. When you were first asked by some reporter at a rinky-dink newspaper, you were always.
It's a newspaper owned by Cox Newspapers and the Austin American Statesman. It may be a small paper, but it's owned by a national Cox chain.
Every newspaper is owned by a national chain now. So,
No, it isn't. We have lots of little local newspapers that are owned by private individuals in this state.
Hold on, caller.
Yeah.
Caller. What records requests have you submitted?
Oh, God. Here we
Where's
go.
that?
Yeah, no.
Where's that? Send me some of your records requests
What
that you
record
have
request do you want me to submit, Kevin?
Caller, send me. You have my email.
What do you
It's
want me
public
to
record.
What
Send
do you want me to look up?
Send me your records requests.
Are you acting as if getting a record request is an important or difficult thing to do? If I had all day like David Fisher had, I would be.
So
I would be
your
happy
argument is based on what though? Then it's based on the transcripts.
Logic. It's based on logic, and not conspiracy theories, and not BS.
Now, look. I'm sorry, and your name is. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, so I don't know how to address you.
But I'm caller. Remember?
I don't. You okay, caller? That's fine. I just need to be able to address my question to you. Now, once I pull the basically what it's called, would be equivalent to a Carfax, but it's from the state, from the Department of Public Safety that has the history on the vehicle, and when it was bought, sold, all of that, the mileage of the truck at the time that it sold, all of this is in that report. Well, that got my attention, so I went and pulled from the state the person who logged the truck, who would log the truck in and out, the state official for the DPS, for the Texas Rangers and DPS.
Yeah.
And he acknowledges that they don't have any evidence of it being checked in. So I go back to Ed Somola's report, because Ed Somola escorted the truck to the DPS impound lot. And what his report says, he escorted.
So went to the DPS impound lot.
Huh?
You admit
it's in Austin. It's at the DPS. It's at the big DPS office on North Lamar in Austin. It has the crime lab, the Texas Rangers offices, the detectives' offices, the DPS patrol cars. It's a big.
Truck there.
That's where they process. That's the crime lab. That whole.
I thought you said
big.
that the truck never made it there.
No, it made it to the lot. Now, what Ed says is when they drove in, he's escorting Basco's wrecker that has the truck up on the wrecker. It's not a tow; it's up on a flatbed. When they arrive at the DPS office, a DPS trooper is out there flagging Ed and the pickup down and tells Ed that the police chief from Bastrop called and told Ed not to process in the truck, to come in and call the Bastrop Police Department that there's been a development. When he calls, he's told that they found a body of a woman out in the country, and to not check in the truck, but to get the crime lab and escort them back to this particular road where Ed knows out in the country, to escort the crime lab back to the crime scene to process it. So the pickup was left outside, in the DPS parking lot, but it wasn't processed into the crime lab. which now explains how Ed was able to get a hold, how Jimmy was able to get a hold of the truck to sell it to Gold Chevrolet the next morning. It never got processed
That's
in.
a lie.
Now, once I can give Kevin the handwritten report that he can put online, and you can read it yourself.
But it's not. I mean, there's other evidence.
It's a 14-page handwritten report from Ed Somala.
Wait, hold on,
from
Fisher.
a dispassionate, honest person from the DPS who said that he processed it in the DPS lab.
Wait,
just 11.
Say that again. Caller, say that again.
There is testimony from a dispassionate DPS employee who worked in the lab who said that they processed the truck.
Oh, yeah. See, when you talk about dispassionate, you're reading the transcripts. I go back and pull the time records in the sheets to verify this testimony. This lady who talks about the processing, that does all the testimony about the processing of the truck, get to the end of her testimony and see what she says. She says, I wasn't there that day. I took off that day because it was my dad's 65th birthday in East Texas, but this is what they told me they did on that day.
But there was somebody
and see, that knocked me out of the chair, too, when I saw that. So I went
they
back.
Testified.
Huh?
There's a DPS official who, if you think he's making like
there was
$9
Karen,
an
that
hour
was
in order
Karen,
to lie.
That's Karen Blakely. That's Karen Blakely.
No. It was a gentleman who testified
What's
in
his
court
name?
that he
What's
analyzed the truck.
What's his name?
That was Will Young. No, wait a minute. That's Will Young. That's the guy that I'm dealing with that is in charge of the crime lab. And he's the guy who, after he gave that testimony at trial, I came back and asked him for documentation showing when they checked the truck in and checked the truck out. And he says, I didn't get the person's name when I released the truck, and I don't know who I released the truck to. I think it was on this day that I released it, but I forgot to get anybody to sign it out. So he didn't sign it in, he didn't sign it out. But the day he said that he released it to somebody he doesn't know who it was, doesn't match up with what Jimmy told the sheriff deputy the day that he picked it up from. See, Jimmy says he picked it up from the DPS crime lab and had it sold. But those dates are many days apart from what the head of the crime lab says he released it, and when Jimmy says he picked it up and sold it. And see, that's the problem. And
he said he never saw it. He said he never really touched it after he brought the keys.
No, that's what he said. But the problem is, it's his name, it's his handwriting that's selling it to Gold Chevrolet on April 24th, and his signature. That is his signature.
Right. You don't have to be with a truck to make a signature on a registration there, Mr. Fisher.
No, he's transferring title to Gold Chevrolet. It's his, and he's doing it at the same time with them processing it in on the 24th. They're taking custody of it.
Wait.
He didn't want anything to do with the truck where his fiancée got murdered. That makes a lot of sense. He said, "Get rid of it." And what do I have to do? I'll sign it.
Yes. He said somebody else. He said he had somebody else do it, but you know what? That person said they didn't. Jimmy did.
That's a lie.
But hold on. 1 second. 1 second here. Caller, you're talking about wanting to get rid of the vehicle that his fiancée was murdered in during an ongoing investigation as a police officer? Seriously?
Because you need seriously, Kevin. Your wife your fiancée gets murdered. You have to deal with all of that, and also, you know what? You still have to get around town, right? And so you need a new car. And you have $200 in the bank, and so you got to sell the truck in order to get a new car. And you can't wait 15 years for Rodney Reed to confess that he murdered somebody. So you got to get the truck back.
How did he get to and from Bastrop without the truck?
I don't know. You're going to go.
He had his mother-in-law's car.
He had a vehicle driving.
Oh God. We're going to get into this rat hole. Hey, listen.
You were the one that opened the rat hole.
You bring up Curtis Davis.
You opened.
I don't know if.
Hey, listen.
I know you don't. You're not a big guy on Twitter, Mr. Fisher.
Hey.
But I sent this to Kevin back on April 23rd, and it is Curtis Davis's Sheriff's Department multi-time request record, and it shows what? What does it show?
Well, I don't have it pulled up on my computer, but I have it. I can pull it up on my computer pretty fast.
I'll tell you. On the 23rd, 1996, he had 10.5 hours on leave. Personal death. It's written down there.
What the timesheet tells you is Curtis Davis was working the night shift. The Bastrop Sheriff jailers work 12-hour shifts.
Right.
They work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., either a.m. or p.m. They work, but it's 7 to 7, whether it's p.m. to a.m. or a.m. to p.m.
Yep. Correct.
On the night of the 22nd.
Right. He worked 11. He had 11 sick leave hours.
No, it's not. It's not what hours he has accrued on vacation time.
No, it's sick leave hours.
His shift started on the 22nd, the Monday. The 22nd,
right.
His shift started at 7 p.m. His shift started at 7 p.m. and was to end at 7 a.m. the morning of the 23rd of April.
Correct.
He told his boss that he broke a tooth and left the sheriff's department at 9 p.m.
Correct.
On Monday night.
Yeah, so he had 11 hours of sick leave.
It doesn't matter what his sick leave is. Now,
it does.
No.
Okay.
Because then we
wait.
Kevin, let me work this through. Caller, you got it. Caller, you got the timesheet, so you can verify this later. What Curtis Davis told CNN, and you can pull the transcript up.
I know. We went through this back in February.
Okay, I can get it to Kevin, and you can get it. But he told CNN that when he arrived Tuesday morning, when he arrived the morning of the 23rd for his shift, Jimmy Fennell was in the break room. Wait, if you look at your timesheet for Tuesday,
the 23rd,
Curtis Davis, the 23rd, is scheduled to work from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Wednesday morning.
Yeah,
he wasn't scheduled to come in at 7 a.m. on the 23rd. He took off the night of the 29th and the 20. I'm sorry.
So he on the 22nd he couldn't work. So someone had to take his place. Someone who had to work the next day had to take his place.
No, he didn't.
The 11 hours that he didn't work.
You don't understand. This little town, they just go short a deputy.
I don't think that's true.
Yes, it is
because
true.
on the 23rd, he took 10.5 hours off as a personal death on the 23rd.
It doesn't matter what he took off. It's what his schedule says.
No. It matters what the schedule doesn't mean anything because obviously the schedule changed, right? The schedule changed because he said, or he had to drive Jimmy home because he killed his wife, or he had to drive. He had to leave early because he had a broken tooth.
What he did after Tuesday for his schedule from Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., he took off the next 3 days using his accrued time. And so the jail was simply short a jailer. Look, I live in this little town. I mean, I live in this little county.
I don't know.
I live in this county.
All right.
I live what?
That's what kind of logical fallacy is that? You're saying you know better than me because of that.
I live here.
Well,
okay, yeah.
Jack,
I live in Bastrop.
It's arguing from authority.
I lived in Bastrop since 90.
Hold on. 1 second. Hold on. Wait. Your argument is what? How can he tell you about the place that he lives? Is that your argument?
Well, he doesn't live in Bastrop, dude, and he didn't live in Bastrop in the late 1990s. So, but
I moved to Bastrop
we're having
in
a logical discussion here.
in late
Wait.
99 2000. Late
Kevin.
99 2000 is when I
Kevin,
moved to
look up-
Bastrop County from Houston.
So
Look up the logical fallacy of arguing from authority. You discount my
Caller.
logic that by the way, Kevin, you've had this for months, but on the 23rd of 1996, this guy who you think didn't work on the wasn't scheduled to work has 10.5 hours of holiday leave time because of a personal death. So I don't know if the city of Bastrop would say, hey, he has a vacation day today, but let's give him.
No, you're talking about the
hours.
county. Works for the sheriff's department, not the city.
Okay,
Curtis
there you go.
Davis
All
worked
right.
for the sheriff's department
Yeah. All right. So
as a jailer.
So
a jailer.
Point being made. Point made. Yeah. Let's get away from the facts. Let's throw in.
Look, caller.
Inconsequential facts.
okay,
Caller.
wait.
Let me know, Kevin. Let me close this out. I deal with the records. All of the county officials know me. The judges know me. The sheriff knows me. Knows me very well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And the Reeds know you pretty well too, right?
I haven't talked to the Reed. I haven't talked to the
you-
Reed family in years, in over a decade.
Why is that? Because you screwed them over. You screwed them over. You screwed Mrs.
Oh yeah.
Reed
Do you know
over
how
with
much
her real estate problems.
I charged them? Do you know how much I charged them to research their son's case?
Negative $45,000 because that's.
I
how
charged
much
them
they had to
$1. I charged them $1.
That's
So-
$2 too much.
Hold on.
One. Yeah. Well, on your end that might be the case because I'm goring your ox.
Wait,
But
I'm still curious though.
What did you do? What did it end up? You ended up in court costing Mrs. Reed money because you tried to hustle the people, the people who were suing her. You tried to intimidate them.
No.
Yeah.
What? No.
Oh, yeah, that's-
no. And let me tell you, see, what you don't know is that all of that is part. See, that's the first time I saw a visiting judge with no oath. And let me tell you, when that judge ruled against Sandra Reed in 2006, July 2006, and issued a judgment against her for $175,000, he didn't make it back to Austin before I had him on the phone. And when he realized I knew what he did, he made a U-turn and beat a path back to Bastrop and vacated his judgment. Now
that's not true.
Now let me tell you, that was the only case that I was involved in on that property. The second case, I talked to the expert for the defense and laughed his ass. You see, this building that Sandra Reed owns is an old shotgun building built in the 1800s. It is a building that was built up against an original building that was a freestanding building exposed to the weather. There are no common anything. There are no pipes. There are no roof attachments. Her building is a freestanding building built right next to it. The roof sits down 2 feet inside the rectangle. That's what keeps these old shotgun buildings standing. They burn down all the time, all over Texas. It doesn't affect the adjacent buildings, period. There is no way that Sandra Reed's building, the roof, could affect the building adjacent to it because they're both individual freestanding buildings that only touch each other's bricks, and even if the brick walls fell down on the inside of Sandra Reed's building next to this one, that's the way it was originally built, exposed to the weather on all four sides. This was a scam, but you know what's going to happen when the state starts peeling these visiting judges, the judge who ruled against her. And see, I wasn't part of the case. I had no idea any of this testimony, anything they put in the record existed until years later that I heard about it. I go, what are you talking about?
She lying?
Oh, you didn't hear what they said?
Is she lying?
What?
She The people involved said that you intimidated them, or you tried to intimidate them to drop the case.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the expert. The expert, the structural engineer. I laughed my ass off with him. And then he says, well Mr. Fisher,
you know what?
do you know I was in that building and I
laugh
inspected her building? And I said, you went in that building? You trespassed on private property? Well, I actually looked through the window, and I said, you can't tell anything through the windows. Those windows are so dirty, glazed over from the inside, it doesn't matter. Look, Jack, look, caller, I got to tell you, you have in your own mind your idea of how everything happened, but you have no records. You've taken no time to research, read the testimony. I have all the trial transcripts in my computer. I have all of the records. I have all of the pictures.
Yeah, you've done that.
Here's the issue. Here's the issue. There's a difference. The difference with the two of you is one only has the transcripts, and one has transcripts along with other
Listen, Kevin, in the
documents
real
requested.
world, the transcript is a record of the court where both the defense and the prosecution under oath. Okay, go ahead. It means nothing. You're right, Kevin. Our whole
caller.
Yeah.
Caller. I already explained this, and it's not rocket science. A transcript is the facts of the trial. It is the fact. Listen to me.
Of the trial.
Listen to me.
Of the case.
Hold on, Fisher.
No, the whole case.
Hold on, Fisher.
Because both sides
listen to me. Hey, listen.
Case.
You're about 2 seconds away from being cut off completely. Don't try me. Do not try me. All right? You're calling my broadcast. Don't try me.
Let me know when I can speak.
I will let you know. So don't interrupt me. Now, a transcript is the record of what transpired in court. Facts. So if someone lied in court, it's going to be in the transcript. Fact. So yes, you have facts. Not all facts are truths. I said you both have transcripts. What you don't both have, apparently, are also records being requested outside of those transcripts or to support those transcripts.
I do.
And I said, send me your records that you requested along with your records requests. Send them to me. You have my email. Send them.
I've sent them to you via Twitter.
Listen, do not disrespect my broadcast. Do not
Was that
do that.
disrespectful?
You sent them to me on Twitter. What the hell? Listen.
I apologize if I just
Listen to me, and listen to me good. You're going to send me something, you're going to send them to me by email along with your records requests. You know how I ended up being presenting the information that Fisher had sent me? He sent me his records requests along with the responses from those records requests. You want me to present something? Send me your records requests along with the information you were given in response to that request. Then we can talk. You see,
let me
hold on, Fisher. Hold on, Fisher. Hold on. What you have effectively done tonight, Carlo, as we have been addressing Darlie Routier's case and drawing comparisons to other cases in Texas, is all about apparently the one case that you're familiar with. Why didn't you call and talk about Darlie Routier?
Because back in February, you said you were going to have me back on, and the three of us were going to discuss this, and you lied about that, and you haven't asked me back.
Yo, listen to me.
We haven't
hold on, Fisher. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you one chance to apologize for calling me a liar.
I apologize.
Don't you ever call my broadcast and do that again. Ever. Do you understand me? Am I clear, caller?
Can I speak?
Am I clear,
I
caller?
do have a.
Am
do have a
I
video.
clear, sir?
You're clear. You don't like to be called a liar on your own broadcast.
Listen to me and listen to me good. I said, when we talk Fisher, you're welcome to hear your opinions. You know when I'm doing my broadcast because clearly you troll me on Twitter. Now, understand
Troll.
this. Understand this. Tonight's broadcast was not about the Reed case. I allowed you to say whatever it is you wanted to say relating to this. We just added a whole hour talking about that. We're supposed to talk about Darlie Routier's case and things relating to it. You called me about the what? You said nothing about Darlie Routier. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This whole time. It's all about David Fisher. Right?
You guys allowed me to. I asked
Listen,
when I started if it was okay.
hey. You notice I didn't call you, you called me, right?
Right? Because you did
All
not call me.
Listen to me. And listen good. When I'm talking, you called, the same way you interrupted my health show a few weeks ago in the chat room. Now understand this. My broadcasts are very specific. So we're talking about Darlie Routier and things relating to her. Some of the things related to Rodney Reed's case. We didn't dwell on Rodney Reed's case. You called in saying something about Rodney Reed's case and made this whole thing about Rodney Reed's case. Tonight wasn't a Rodney Reed discussion. Now understand this. Understand this.
I asked.
Understand this.
You said yes.
Understand this. You interrupt me one more time. It's the last time you call this broadcast. You're looking for a platform to say something. I'm giving you the platform to say something. Now I said to you, and it's the last time I'm going to say this. Send me by email your records requests and the results of those records requests. If you want to connect that to what is in the transcript from the trial, fine. But send me your records requests along with the responses that you got relating to those requests. Can you do that?
Will you have me on as a guest?
Can you do that, caller?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Do that. Do that.
Here's what I'm going to do. You want me to tell you what I'm going to request?
I don't care what you want to request. I said that when you request what you're requesting, send them to my email so that we can move from there. You don't have to tell me what you're going to request. I don't stop anybody from being a guest on my broadcast. If you're going to come on my broadcast, though, you're going to come and you're going to present some kind of evidence. You have presented nothing to me but court transcripts. I have the court transcripts.
No, I have evidence about the hours that Curtis worked.
I have those. Right. I have those too.
Can I propose something here,
to you.
Kevin?
In the last
no. I have them because Fisher sent them to me.
No, you don't.
What you sent to me wasn't anything new.
Yeah, it was because you guys were arguing last time. Both of you were arguing that he did not take time off on that Wednesday.
Listen. You have a place in your head that you live, and that's fine. I said, send me your records request. Send me the results from your records request, and then we will talk.
What will you do once I do
and
that?
Then,
what are you going to do once I...
Listen, listen. Once again, you're coming with disrespect to me.
I'm not. I respect
Listen to me. Listen to me. Don't play with me. I'm not one to play.
I really do.
Hey.
You have a good show here.
Hey. Yeah. Stop interrupting me.
All right. Sorry, I'm complimenting you.
I'm not flattered by compliments. I'm really not. You want to flatter me? Send me your records requests with the results from those requests.
I got it.
If you think I do a good broadcast, send me that so that I can do a good broadcast and present the information that was sent to me. That is how a good broadcast happens. You have presented me with nothing. You're sending me things on Twitter. I don't care what you want to do on Twitter. I don't live on Twitter. I don't live on social media.
Well, you replied to me on Twitter.
And I told you, I do not do the back and forth thing on social media, hiding behind computers. You notice, I have a camera, I have a voice. So I'm not hiding anywhere. I'm not hiding behind anything. And I present as much information as I can. And if I have the physical document that I can show, I will show it. So show me something that I can show to present another side of this argument. Until then, we have nothing to talk about. Do not, and I repeat, do not, on social media, be calling me about foolishness or including me in any foolishness. Do not do it. And if you do it one more time, then we're going to have some serious problems. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, can I propose something, Kevin and caller?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Why don't we set up a program here sometime in the future here where, caller, you pick out the transcripts that you want to go over on air. That way I can pull them up. Kevin has them. And we can talk about them, what the actual testimony is and what the records are. And that way, you know, since it's in writing, it's in the transcripts. we can determine that it is what it says, or it's not what, you know, or the testimony changed 5 pages later. And see, that might be a more effective way, because you're passionate about what you feel. Now, understand, I believe that Rodney was innocent, but I'm not real passionate. I don't talk to the Reeds because I got fed up with dealing with a family that won't learn their own son's case in order to talk intelligently to the media. Rodney needs a spokesperson in the family to learn his case so they can talk intelligently to the media. I have brought this to their attention for more than 2 decades, and they won't do it. They just want to go and say that, oh, we believe that God will step in. Well, I'm sorry. You know, God helps those that help themselves, and the Reed family won't help themselves, and I have hundreds of cases that I'm working. And I can't take time where families, I've already done as much as I can do. And with the family won't call Barry Scheck and the Innocence Project to task, or be able to call the media in for a press conference and point out where Barry Scheck has lied to them or not handled the case or allowed false testimony. There's nothing I can do. And sadly, you know, that's the way it is. Now, whether you know it or not, both executions of Rodney were stopped by me in 2015 and then in 2019, because I was watching the judges and I saw what they were doing and I immediately went after them.
With respect, Mr. Fisher, I agree to disagree with you on the reasons why those. So
that you know, in 2000 on February was, I think, the 24th of 2015, I filed a complaint with the Commission on Judicial Conduct against Judge Shaver, signing that execution order, having not taken the oath of office for that appointment. They stopped the execution because, under Texas law, if a judge, a visiting judge, has a complaint filed against them with the Commission on Judicial Conduct, and they start an investigation, all of the orders of that judge as a visiting judge are stayed, and that included the execution order. I filed it on a Friday. The next Monday, the Court of Criminal Appeals stopped the execution. Now, the press put it out there that they stopped it because of Michael Bodden's affidavit, which came from me. See, I presented the files to Dr. Michael Bodden for that opinion through A&E TV. But What you didn't know was the actions that the Commission on Judicial Conduct took. Because of that filing that I filed in 2015, last November, the Texas Constitution was amended. What the legislature put before the voters and they passed November of last year, 2021, is giving the Commission on Judicial Conduct authority over judicial candidates. What they ruled in my complaint against Judge Shaver is that because he had not taken the oath of office for any of his assignments to cases since he retired in 1999, he was not a judge under Texas Supreme Court rulings. To be a judge, you have to take the oath after you retire. Since he had not taken the oath for any of his appointments, he was still a candidate for those appointments, but until he took the oath, he was not a judge, and they had no authority over him. In 2019, when Shaver again signed his execution order, as soon as he signed it, he wrote a letter to the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court stating that he's getting old and he's afraid he's going to make a major mistake in a major case even though he's still in excess health. And he wanted his name removed from the list of judges eligible to ever take the bench again. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court granted that request and contacted the Comptroller's office and voided Doug Shaver's name from the list. But this is right after he signed the execution order. Then he feigns mental incompetency potential and has his name stricken. When you do that, you void all execution orders. All orders you have issued are voided because you're no longer a judge. What he was intending to do is have Reed executed on a void order, and then if he got caught, he would claim mental disability. Because of what he did, and then J.D. Langley, who executed Larry Swearingen as a visiting judge with no oath, the legislature then drafted the amendment to the Constitution. Now judges who don't take the oath, that take the bench, are still judicial candidates because they haven't taken the oath, are now under the authority of the Commission on Judicial Conduct. See, that's what quietly I do behind the scenes. And see, what happens tomorrow is a big visiting judge, having not taken the oath of office, is sitting on the bench to recuse the elected judge in the Walmart mass murder case from 2 years ago. And that judge is illegally on the bench. Today I had a long conversation with both the U.S. Attorney's Office, because they're involved, who then immediately had me call the FBI. And so that judge, if he shows up tomorrow with no oaths to take that bench, he is likely to be arrested by the FBI. The district clerk's office called me and asked me what the procedure was for them to remove him from the bench if he does show up. Because the district clerk polices the courts to keep judges who are not eligible off the bench. And I pointed out to them the manner that's set up by the Texas Constitution is called a writ of quo rantro, which is the only way you can remove a judge who's trespassing on another judge's court. So all of this stuff took place today.
But here's what I'm saying, Fisher. Caller, if you don't disbelieve anything that Fisher has said as it relates to his petitions to the court, go ahead and do a records request. Do that.
And do you know how the efficient way to file a public records request is in Texas? I don't know where you're from.
Yeah,
it's real simple.
I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you what I'm going to look for?
So,
I'm sorry? I'd be interested in what you're looking for.
Tell you what I'm going to look for?
Sure.
I'm going to look for. I'm going to put a records request in for any and all pieces of evidence, automotive or otherwise, that was checked in to the DPS on the dates that the truck was supposedly brought into the DPS.
Okay, you're probably going to get kicked. That's too broad. Do you know who you filed that type of
Well,
request with?
There's a reason.
I can give you the email address where you would file that request. It's with the General Counsel of the DPS. Let me take just a second to pull that up.
You don't need
Hey.
to do that. I'll
Fish.
work it on my.
But anyway, you need to just a second, Kevin. You need to
I understand
narrow.
that the
you need
scope
to
is
narrow. You can't
Yeah.
say any and all.
But
Because they'll kick it back at you. It's too broad.
Well, I mean, the rationale behind it is that we know from what you've researched that they cannot produce the documentation that the truck was in.
Yeah,
So,
but you see, there are written records. If you request the reports of the log in and the log out of Fennell's pickup, in the Rodney Reed case, then they have those records because they filed reports.
They don't, though.
I'm sorry?
They don't have those records.
Right. Well, no, they have the reports from the officer in charge, the official Will Young, who is in charge of the case, who logs in the evidence and out. He has written reports stating that they have no records that they logged it in, and he failed to file the records when they logged it out. So that they do have. They have an acknowledgement that Will Young didn't record it in or record it out.
Okay. So the request is for any evidence. Is it retrievable at this point in time? So the question will be asked. Not
okay. Yeah, you can if you narrow it a little bit to deal with logging the pickup in and out. Yeah. Then they can do a broad search on that. But if you ask for any and all evidence, I'm sorry.
If they come back that a week in 1997, then
96.
And then we can assume that there might be a problem other than the truck never getting logged in.
Okay,
and
narrow it down to the month of April of 96. Yeah. That will focus them a little more. And what they will come back with is they'll give you Will Young, who is the head of the operation of processing that truck. They'll give you his records where he's acknowledged, because he had to, when I filed it, that he had to acknowledge into their record system that he did not have the vehicle recorded in and forgot to log it out. So you'll get those.
All right.
And that's all they have.
And then I believe, I don't want to tell Mr. Stu what to do here, but I like what you put together. It's like an outline of testimony and covering the facts that we are at least in a little bit, if not a significant amount of dispute on, and we can talk about it someday on a Monday when Mr. Stu believes that it is proper to do so.
Sure. When everybody has the same transcript on the same page, then it's real easy to argue a fact-specific point.
I have no problems arguing documents. Let's argue what is on these documents. Let's argue these records requests. But if someone is going to come with an opinion on a trial transcript, that is ridiculous to me.
No, I wouldn't tolerate anybody just having an opinion on a transcript myself. I don't believe that that's what I'm doing.
Right. And just so you know, caller, again, I have no dog to hunt in the Reed case. I, for a long time, wasn't sure just how innocent Rodney was of everything that went on in his life. You have to understand, when I do research, because I do research for attorneys and I do research for judges too, that I have to pull all the records. I have to pull both sides of issues. I had to go back and contact Rodney Reed's old attorney from Wichita Falls and talk to him about, the whole representation on all of the matters that he represented Reed on up there in Wichita Falls. He's a good friend. His name's Bob Estrada. We talk rather frequently. And he has me do research for him on his current court cases. In fact, he has a case coming up involving the Dallas Medical Examiner's Office that they need my research on. But I, like I said, I don't, I don't twist, or try to manipulate or mislead anybody on any aspect of a case. If there's evidence and I have it, then I talk, intelligent about what I have and what I've documented. But other than that, I'm not, and I understand what you're talking about. So many experts on these programs mix and mash their opinions with the documents. I don't do that. I just deal with the documents. If I have the documents and the documents are proved that they say this, and these are the only documents, and the state acknowledges these are the only records, then that's pretty much a fait accompli, and I'll say it as such. But if I don't know it for fact, I'll tell you, in my opinion, like I said in the Darlie Routier case, I didn't mention or talk about the alleged intruder. I just deal because I don't have any evidence of the alleged intruder. I have physical evidence. I have the reports. I'll talk about those. But since I don't have any evidence that there was an intruder, that's her version of the events. And that's the way I conduct my business. Is I have to have records before I'll venture out. I will tell you that some things suggest something else, but I don't say that it's that is true or untrue. It only suggests, but I have no hard facts. And that's the way I do. That's the way I conduct business.
I appreciate it.
So with a trial transcript, since you have some issues about the trial transcripts, I know the trial transcripts inside out because I've been dealing with them for so long, and there are nuances. Yeah. And I know we're getting time for Kevin to call it a night.
Yeah. All right. We've got some things to talk about later, and sure. I'll get that information.
Yeah, Kevin and y'all can get together. I'm always available. I can always move, since it's my business, I can move my time around to accommodate both of you.
I appreciate it. Okay, some Monday in the future. Appreciate it.
Sure. I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Bye-bye.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care.
Yeah, Fish.
That was interesting.
Yeah. I
would really like to know who, my curiosity. Who is he? He's clearly invested for one reason or another into this case, which is good. But by playing devil's advocate, it does give us the ability to actually have somebody who disagrees.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
I welcome it.
It took us a while to get a rocky road to get to a platform that works for the three of us.
Yeah, but
and who knows, his interpretation might shed some light on something to me that I've overlooked. I mean, that's always a possibility, and I'm always open-minded.
I'm open for it. I'm open for it. Just don't come presenting nothing and arguing everything. I asked you to, and
yeah, that can get pretty frustrating.
What he has been doing is tagging me in these Twitter comments, and his profile doesn't even have a real name, a real picture, nothing. I don't know who this person is, and if he wants to remain anonymous, fine.
At least he has a profile. I don't even have that. I don't do social media. Period.
And he has a real voice. So,
cool. and true. It's very clear that he is articulate. He is educated. He talks.
Present your argument. That's all I ask.
Good English, and he expresses himself well. May disagree with his findings or his interpretation, but he has an excellent command of the English language, and he's passionate. And so, hey, in this day and age, that's a lot of pluses.
I can work with that.
Yeah, same. Yeah, yeah. I think that's the best. That's probably the best way that can be put. Is it makes everything workable, and he's looking for a platform in which to express. He has he has something
Hey,
to say.
mine is open to everybody. I don't discriminate.
Yeah,
But if you're presenting something, especially when it comes to someone's life, yeah, you can say you have an opinion. This is your opinion. Cool. But when you're gonna come and say that is not fact or this is not fact, present me with your backing of that.
yeah. I just think and I think we got common ground. It if he is dealing with other platforms, they're pretty much a free for all, which is what
Yeah.
a lot of tonight was. So that's understandable. But when you finally realize that you're dealing with people that will try to come to a common ground, that we're all on the same page to discuss the issues. Well, then that's completely workable to him, and it's completely workable to me, and it's completely workable to you. So I mean, I think we all made a breakthrough that, yeah, we just want to talk about the different opinions on the interpretation of the evidence and the documents and the trial transcripts. And like I said, I always talk to anybody about a case I'm working,
Mm-hmm.
even the hardest people to deal with, because I've always learned that even the hardest to talk to people actually a lot of times have documents and evidence that they don't realize what they have until somebody who's talking to them, who knows the case, realize what they're actually saying and what they have. And then it's like, an epiphany. It's like, oh crap, did you mean what you just said?
Yeah.
That you have this? And they go, yeah, doesn't everybody know that? And come back is absolutely not. This is brand new. This is dynamite stuff. Explain to me more about where you got this and who's all involved. And those people then they share that, and then it's like, oh my God, that rewrites this whole segment of what people believed and what I believed. So hey, I'm always open, because the bottom line is I want to get to the truth. If the truth ends up that Rodney actually killed Stacy, you're not going to find a better person to accept that than me, or a more willing person. But there's a lot of evidence you got to get over first, because man, there's a mountain that he's absolutely innocent.
Mm.
But there's always the possibility. I mean, this is a strange world that we live in.
It is.
So, anywho, I understand that hurricane's going to sit around off your coast for a couple of days.
Yeah, and it's slow moving, but hey, as long as he stays in the water and brings just a little bit of rain to land, we can work with it.
Yeah, it's good. You get the kids, put them in their bathing suits, put them out in the,
Yeah.
outside, and tell them play in the rain before it gets cold.
The problem with that is the lightning, the debris, and an occasional tornado. So.
Yeah, but when a hurricane stops offshore, the amount of lightning and the tornadoes are greatly reduced. Those things start developing when the storms start falling apart, when it's hit land. So if it's just sitting there and slowly weakening, generally you just get wind and rain, and not very much lightning or thunder. And unless you're on a feeder band, right where it comes in off the water and hits land, that's where you'll have the tornadoes.
Well, here's the thing. It going up into the Gulf, all this warm water, it can only strengthen.
Yeah, but when it starts moving towards Florida has the west side of Florida has a long, flat, shallow Grand Bank, where the water's 50 feet deep. that goes for 100 miles. And it doesn't take long for a hurricane to churn those waters and suck all the heat out. Because the Gulf Stream comes, or the Gulf Stream comes out of the Caribbean through that pass between Cuba, and then it goes north towards New Orleans, and then bends back around and comes down the west side of Florida, and then cuts through the channel between the Keys and Cuba.
Yeah.
And so when it comes in and it's under that cloud debris, well, the winds are churning the water while it comes up, churning out the heat as it comes up to New Orleans and then turns into that shallow water. And then by the time it gets back to the eye, most of that heat has been shaken out of the water and mixed. And so the hurricanes very quickly, when they get stationary over that big flat area, begin to weaken and start spreading out pretty quickly.
The problem with that, though, is the amount of water that gets dumped on the land. It's low-lying. Low-lying land with a high water table. So
the thing that you would have to start watching out about there in Miami, being so close to the Everglades and all of that, is when you're playing in that 2-foot water, damn 20-foot anacondas coming up and grabbing around you.
Yeah. So I won't be playing out there in that water. So.
Well, I tried to talk to that your Florida Parks and Wildlife people that they'd buy those emu eggs.
Yeah.
And drill a hole and put some acetaminophen down in those, and then plug those eggs up and lay them out there in the Everglades. The only snake that's going to eat that, the only animal that's going to be able to get in there and eat those eggs,
is the anacondas.
Are those big snakes.
Yep.
And acetaminophen is the kiss of death to reptiles.
Yep.
It'll kill a snake just lickety split. That's how we do here in Texas. To keep the chicken snakes from eating the eggs.
Yeah.
Is you take an egg and you simply
give it to them.
Take a little glue and glue a Tylenol onto the outside of the egg on one of the ends and put it in the nest, and the snake comes and eats the egg, and that's the end of the snake.
There we go.
That's the last egg he'll ever eat. And if you have trouble with rattlesnakes in this time of the year, they start looking to climb into brush piles or under buildings. And if you have a barn that has an area that's elevated where the snakes can get under and hibernate through the winter, now's the time you start putting out a few hen eggs with the Tylenol. And if they disappear every night, you put them out until they stop disappearing. And you won't have any rattlesnakes in the spring or the fall. You'll kill every one of them.
That works.
So, but they said, oh, well, that's not environmentally friendly. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, my child, my 2-year-old playing on the, out there and having one of those rock pythons come up and wrap around them is pretty ecologically unfriendly to me and my family. Or the damn alligators, you walk next to the pond and they come up and grab your dog. I mean, it comes a time when it's time to call the numbers back down.
Right.
Because we've already seen, how long it takes for them to come back after you almost take them to extinction. So don't take them that far. But, man, somebody's going to have to get their head on straight, in that Florida, or it's going to be like, Australia, where nobody goes near the water. And that's going to have a lot of impact on your tourist trade.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, we're already seeing what happens. We've seen tourists disappearing feet first, or head first down a 12-foot gator's mouth.
Yeah. The adventure
but the first
continues,
time on
though.
national TV that a golfer gets grabbed off the golf course when he's standing there, he's got his trying to take a shot next to the water hazard.
Yeah.
And a 12-foot gator on national TV comes up and grabs him. I suspect
Things will
that
change.
there's,
Things will
Mhm.
change.
yeah, I think we'll have some open season, and alligator shoes and handbags will get cheap again.
There we go.
All righty.
Hey,
I'll,
Fish.
I'll call it a night, and it's good talking to you. And yeah, whenever you can,
Thanks.
you know,
Yep.
you and the caller put it together, just let me know, and I'll make the time.
I'll definitely let you know. There was more that we could have talked about, Darlie, in that additional hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, you're right,
But-
and we'll have to retouch, on
Yeah.
Darlie again. But probably the best time is when when the next hearings come out on this DNA testing stuff.
Yeah, and see what
And-
they come back
And,
with.
well, actually, if this judge gets tagged tomorrow
Yeah.
over his oaths, it's going to have a rather dramatic effect on medical examiners' offices in Texas, because one of the first ones will get hit is Bexar County, where this judge is from illegally.
Mhm.
And the first autopsies that it will flag out nationally over a medical examiner with no oaths are the autopsies in the Robb Elementary case shooting. All of those autopsies were done in Bexar County illegally, where the medical examiner refuses to take the oath.
That may be problematic. So
Well, it's not going to hit just that one, but
Yeah.
all of those immigrants that suffocated in that tractor trailer rig
but
in
this is
San
what I'm
Antonio.
saying. The fallout,
Yes.
fallout is way too great.
Right, and see, once a medical examiner's office gets tagged over the judicial office, the lightning bolt goes to Dallas because of Jeffrey Bernard being a professor at the medical school earning a salary, being the medical examiner earning a salary, being the director of the crime lab, and also the chair of the Forensic Science Commission.
He has too many seats.
Well, all of it's unconstitutional, and it will hit all of not only the autopsies, but all of the DNA, the ballistics, all of that stuff will come undone. And it will expose Texas criminal justice system and these so-called checks and balances that Bereshek always, brags about. Texas has its Forensic Science Commission that regulates the forensic sciences to protect, the defendants. My butt. When you put a big old fox in, charge of the hen house,
Yeah.
just how good is that going to work out
Yeah.
for the hens? Not very, and that's exactly what you got here. And the defendants are those chickens. And the Forensic Science Commission just kicks. It's rare that they ever make a ruling positive to a defendant, even though on face value, the defendant should take the win, but they never do. Not under Bernard. So anyway, there are some tripwires that are laid out,
Yes.
and boy, it would not take much to set them off. And so tomorrow we could end up having the first big one take off.
Well, you and I will talk tomorrow.
Real good. I'll keep you apprised. As soon as I hear something, I'll email you.
Well, later today, that is.
Yeah, well, as the case may be.
For me, it
well,
definitely
you'll see
is.
the sun before me.
Definitely. All right.
All right.
Have a good one, man.
We'll sign off. It's good talking to you tonight, Kevin, and listeners had a good time. Hope you did.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Good night. I see them lost in illusion.
I see them lost. Oh, yes, I see them lost in illusion. Lost in illusion.
I want to say thanks to everyone that was locked on and logged in.
And now they're
Yeah, we tend to go over when we have Fisher on. Caller,
why is it that my race
looking forward to hearing from you again.
my race
Make sure it's after you send me those documents, though. Then we can schedule something, yeah? Like I said, I welcome anybody to come on, and you have an opinion, say this is your opinion. Don't come on my broadcast presenting facts when you have not presented any facts, yeah? Let's really get an understanding of what we're doing here when we talk people's lives. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people's lives. Now, we may or may not be in a position to influence what happens in these individuals' lives. But because we don't know how much we can influence it, make sure that we are presenting the best information. Make sure we're presenting accurate information. Opinions, cool. Understand that you put it out there. This is an opinion. And like Anna says, just about everybody has one. Yeah? So, as we part company tonight, look out for members of your community. Remember, your community is not just a development that you live in, it spreads far and wide. Those that you pass on the bus, the plane, the boat, or the train, whether you walk, ride, or drive, these are members of your community. Do something good for one of them today, because you never know who's going to do something good for you tomorrow. My name is Kevin Stew, so I like to do it to you, for you, and with you. Thank you to my affiliates. Thank you to my sponsors. Catch you later on for Healthy Love. Lost in Illusion, Nikki Blaze in the background. This is where we part company. Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you wherever you are in the world from right here in South Florida. I bid you all a good night. Take care. Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.